Voi OCPD Ben Stein Shari says the Mombasa-bound PSV collided head-on with a transit trailer, resulting in several deaths on the spot. He said 3 people who sustained injuries were rushed to the Moi County Referral Hospital in Voi.
Chenye kimeniokoa suruali yangu hii imeshikwa juu nikaangishwa juu ya mlango, ndo baadaye sasa nilipata fahamu nikajitoa hapa, ndo nikaamua kusaidia dereva kwa sababu dereva alikuwa shalaliwa na kiti.
Ningependa kuwaambia madereva wote ambao wanatumia hii Mombasa Nairobi highway wawe waangalifu wakati wanapoendesha magari katika barabara hii, wawe waangalifu, wafuate sheria za barabarani.
You'll soon be able to get your good conduct certificate from the DCI a few days after you apply for it. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki says that following various complaints on the delay that has been experienced in the past, they're addressing the matter. He further adds that they've gotten rid of cartels at the Immigration Department, making the processing of documents fast and easy.
In 10 days from now, there will be no single backlog matter on passports. We will deliver as promised. In between, a lot of things to be done. So I think that's all what I can say for now, because there are issues of production that are still outstanding, but I don't want to speak to them now, because what is critical is what the people of Kenya should expect.
Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu says the Salaries and Remuneration Commission and the Office of the Controller of Budget have become a stumbling block to the judiciary. Mwilu says this is because they've interfered with the allocation of funds to the arm of government, tampering with its independence and ability to effectively perform its duties.
The custodians of the social transformation promise of the Constitution envisages that we are to be the enablers for the realization of its aspirations. We are to utilize the law to effect positive social change. We can and we must be enablers of the values and principles of governance that are embodied in the Constitution.
Judiciary's Chief Registrar Anne Amadi further says that several judiciary projects have stalled due to lack of funds.
There was a year when judiciary got zero budget allocation for the delays that we have seen. And on our part, we acknowledge there was inadequate planning and management of multi-year projects, and some of the constructions remain incomplete to date, but with clear and deliberate plans for their completion.
Justice and Legal Affairs Committee Chair George Muragura, while responding to the complaints, has assured the judiciary of Parliament's support in addressing their grievances.
The National Assembly will continue to support the judiciary within the parameters of the Constitution. We cannot at any one moment try to say that the National Assembly, the Senate or Parliament in general has any right whatsoever to try and hold the judiciary to ransom on any matter. It is purely interdependence within the confines of the Constitution. That what National Assembly is supposed to do under the Constitution for the judiciary, it must do it within the Constitution.
Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o has voiced his concerns about the existing gap between sugar manufacturing and consumption in the country. Professor Nyong'o, who doubles as the chair of the Lake Region Economic Bloc, believes that a major topic to be discussed at the inaugural sugar conference was the proper governance of the sugar industry. The summit, slated for today and tomorrow in Kakamega County, brings together 14 sugarcane growing counties from LREB, and it aims to find solutions to address the ailing sugar sector. In the international scene, Gabon's military rulers have appointed Raymond Ndong Sima, a prominent opponent to ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba, as interim prime minister following the country's coup last month. Ndong, a 68-year-old economist, served as prime minister under Bongo from 2012 to 2014 before becoming a critic and eventually challenging him unsuccessfully in elections in 2016 and 2023. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's betting, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
3, 2.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Nyeri Latifa, Muga, Madam Du, nimesalimia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
Baridi ni degree ngapi hapa?
Hata sijui lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy. You remember the kiss of Judas Iscariot? Iscariot.
Yes.
Is the one that imetuweka kwa hii mashida yote na mataabu kwa sababu of that kiss. Yet the slap of Jesus Christ when he slapped those guys wenye walikuwa wanauza mboga ndani ya kanisa took them to heaven.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's Friday and the streets are wet. A lot of rain in some parts and empty streets at this point. So we're still looking at traffic probably will build up as we get further on into Friday morning. Looks really good coming off of Thika Superhighway. We're seeing a build up as you come in from Garden City Mall, touching on the Outer Ring Junction. And then there's also some traffic on Juja Road, a little bit of that on Gong Road, and also on the other side of things on Jogo Road. As you head towards the Nyayo National Stadium, if you're coming in from Mombasa Road, there's the, trickling in of traffic likely to build up later. And we're looking at the Embakasi Junction coming in from Cabanas towards North Airport Road. That's also going to pile up and probably quite some this morning. It's a few minutes after 6 o'clock. Let's see what happens as we get closer to traffic hour. And let's talk on Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Mambo poa, Mambo Friday.
Mambo freshy.
Mambo freshy. Or otherwise
yangu ni kupoa.
Yeah. Hey, see you today in the denim.
That's right.
You decided.
I did.
Way. Kabisa. Na sisi unamwonaje?
The eyes have it.
Kabisa.
His eyes have it.
Bas.
Yeah. Ndio hiyo.
Ndio hizo. City.
Yes, please.
How you doing?
What are you doing well? Very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like your shoe game.
Thank you.
Bwekelea kiatu kwa meza.
Bana.
Kelea hapa kwa meza watu waone bana. Watu watajuaje?
I'll get a muscle pull.
That's the only problem. Everything else, all constant.
Everything else aligned.
All factors remain constant.
I lift my leg to the point you figure up muscle pull. Then that's just an assistance.
My God.
Nothing like that.
Hey, but your boots are hot, man.
Hapana side. Hapana nini. Nyinyi watu
umekataa?
Hapana, si kukataa. Nishawaambia ni muscle pull.
Haya.
Lakini nyinyi mko namna gani, Eric?
Mimi niko salama.
You well?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Leo niko poa kabisa.
Ndio.
Mimi niko poa kabisa. County Secretary wa Kwale County ameamka leo asubuhi. Amesema ni wasalimie sana.
Tumesalimika sana.
Kwa Kwale anafanya kazi, anatusikiza hapa Nairobi. Sasa nikimwongelesha lazima
anaingia kazi mapema.
Kiswahili. Kazi yake ni Kiswahili yake ni ile sanifu kabisa.
Hebu soma hiyo Kiswahili.
Ile Kiswahili complete.
I love listening to her talk. But amewasalimia.
Tumesalimika sana.
No, once again.
County Secretary wa Kwale County.
Oh, thank you. Mwambie tumesema thank you. Sisi nasema asante sana.
Sisi nashukuru.
Yes.
Tuko salama kabisa.
Iko mzuri.
Mambo vipi pale Kwale?
Iko well done.
Iko well done.
What is the capital city of Kwale?
Capital city of Kwale.
Capital city of Kwale. Kwale town.
Sis Kwale.
Yes. Wachana Ukunda. Kuta's periphery town.
Ile ni kule nini?
Yes. But you're talking about the headquarter.
Headquarter iko pale Kwale town pale.
Yes.
Pale Kwale town pale. Just below, or is it actually on the hills?
Kwale town is not really high up, but yes, unapanda kidogo ndio ufike Kwale town. But see, it's not kama haiko Simba Hills.
Haiko Simba, lakini haiko mbali na Simba. Haiko mbali sana. Haya, tumekubali. Tumekubali salamu zake.
Haya, kubali salamu zake.
Tumezipokea kwa moyo mkunjufu.
I've never understood how does moyo become mkunjufu. I mean, I say it myself, but
kwa moyo mkunjufu.
Yes. But kuna mtu aliniambia niwasalimie jamani.
Humility.
Yes.
Mjufu.
Wajua ile hali ya kunyenyekea. Yes.
Nani mwingine amesalimia?
Kuna ndugu anaitwa Alban Mwenda. Old friend. When I say old friend, I mean I've known him for a long time.
Oh, he's old.
But he's also old.
Yes. Compacted.
Hiyo ni generation yangu. Alema bwana CTI ile program I watch it bwana ha. I also told him Alban, ha to you also.
Ha to you too.
Yes. So mi salimia watu sana.
Tumesalimika.
Mimi nasalimia nyi.
Sisi.
Yes.
Sisi nasalimika. Good morning, everybody. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing this lovely Friday morning. Victoria Rika is a clinical and counseling psychologist. Today is Friday. Today's our Health Friday conversation will be on mental health challenges and why you should open up and say,
Say,
Victoria joins us at 7 a.m. for that conversation. At 8 o'clock, Professor PLO Lumumba was the secretary to the Yashpal Gai Constitution of Kenya Review Commission. He was the convener of the Bomas talks in 2003. He has seen this constitution from the days of idea to draft 1, draft 2,
to everything.
to this Katiba, to 10 years of implementation, 13 years of implementation of the Katiba. And now he says, let's amend this thing. Let's amend it. Yeah. So he will come and tell us why he and others are pushing for constitution amendment. Why now? He recently launched a drive to collect signatures for public initiative of amending the constitution. He joins us at 8 a.m. to tell us why and what parts of the constitution is he unhappy with. FCPA Erastus Kwaka Omolo is a managing partner at Crow Erastus and Company CPAs. And this is, at that time, 7th yesterday. Lipa Kere, 9th. Lipa NHIF, 15th. NSSF, hiyo mambo yote, housing levy, all those things are just going from payslip. How will the September taxes impact Kenyans?
September? Okay.
Done before.
How will they? FCPA Rastas joins us at 9 a.m. for that conversation. So, Keep it here for those many conversations. At 6:15, are you online? You know what to do. We will be doing like that shortly. If you don't, okay, this is it. Go to our comment section on YouTube and Facebook. Tell us where you're locked in from, and we will acknowledge your presence.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Rainy conditions in Nairobi, 14 degrees, highs of 22. We'll see highs of 25 in a partly cloudy Nakuru at 13. And it's 13 and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 22 and lows of 13. 12 will be the low in a partly cloudy Eldoret, going to highs of 24. Looking into a clear Mombasa, 23, highs of 30. And into Malindi, it's partly cloudy at 25 with highs of 30 and lows of 24. It's partly cloudy at 18 in Kisumu, highs of 29. 29 will also be the high in a partly cloudy Kakamega at 16. It's 17 and cloudy in Kampala. Rains are beckoning, highs of 28 and lows of 16. And we'll see lows of 21 in a clear Dar es Salaam at 23, going to highs of 29. It's clear at 13 in Johannesburg, highs of 27 and lows of 11. And it's mostly clear at 25 in Lagos with highs of 30. We'll see highs of 33 in a partly cloudy Kinshasa at 23. Let's look into Beijing Friday afternoon. It's mostly sunny at 26, highs of 28 and lows of 22. Partly cloudy conditions and extreme high temperature warning of going to 34 and reaching level orange in Paris. We'll see highs of 30 in a hazy London at 19. And there's a heat advisory for New York as well. Thursday night is 26 degrees and cloudy, highs of 34 and lows of 23.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Mami Chisaka says it's the Situation Room. Well, good morning to you, my man. Karibu Sana. Quite a number of people here. Don Sabwa says it's Friday. Xmas, Christmas is around the corner. Good morning, all. A Friday in Malawi, we say Lachisanu. Therefore, I have an exam on Friday this week. Ndili ndi maeso Lachisanu Sabataino.
Sabataino is this week, I remember.
Remember?
So Maeso is exam.
Maeso is exam. Ndili ndi maeso. It sounds like, yeah. Have you understood?
Sounds like Mateso.
Well, exam can be Mateso, my friend. Refresh says good morning. Sir George Gashoiro says good morning. Weekend imefika ndio hiyo. Ndu City and Eric Agri Momanyi says salamu alaikum mabingwa. Ni asubuhi njema iliyo na matumaini haswa baada ya baraka tele ya za mvua. I understood a few words there, but all right. Congratulations to Harambee Stars on beating Qatar. That was a wonderful thing to watch, was it not? Good people, it's Friday. Sherehe kubwa sana. Why? By the way, what's going on in Shakahola? Serikali imecheza chini hivyo tu. No accountability after people died. Something to look into. Yep. Good morning, y'all. Friday, and have a wonderful weekend, Zeke says. Ricardo Mariera says, good morning, kings and queens. Tuko locked kutoka Kitengela. Abu Dhabi is where Soulful is this morning. And he says, time is like a sword. If you do not cut it, it will cut you. Okay. Julius Kenyan Jewy says good morning, tuned in from Seattle. Keep on keeping them on the spot. Sawa. Jimmy Wekesa says good morning. Peter Maura is in Kanunga. Lechan says good morning from Kisumu. Robert Mbogo says good morning and happy Friday. All right. Now, Dr. Venvik is in Tuda in Mombasa, and he has insisted that the capital city of Kwale is Diani. So, John Kiangu, good morning, Ndu Eric. Please, why are you looking at me? It's not me who said it now. John Kiangu says, good morning, Ndu and Eric. Remind our last born that leo ni Friday, ata akisema akona masopo. Last born.
Bana, cheza bana.
Last born.
Juu ya meza.
Last born ni wewe.
Leo ni Friday.
Ata kama
Juu ya meza.
Fanya hivyo.
Sorry.
Hata kama uko na
also sorry.
Still memory lapse.
Oh, you guys haven't moved from that story.
Why should we?
Yes.
Paulo Chiang says, good morning, happy Friday all. My daily dose for ending the day as you're going to bed in Washington, D.C. Davy Amber, we see you. Joe Mungai is tuned in this morning. Desmond Otis says, good morning. Kureres Chris says he's tuning from Kitengela, and he says El Nino has started. El Nino is here. Sophia Damer is tuning from Abu Dhabi. We say good morning to you. Ruben Ambicha tuned in from Juba. Bro, Isaiah Victor is tuned in from Kakamega. Waweru Zak is here from us, but he's tuned in from Eldoret. Evans Magari is here. Ojere Fidel says good morning, tuning from Maseno. And Penda Mani is tuning from Boston. Love to you all. Good morning from the deep south of the USA, says IP. Karibu sana, everybody.
Kabesa. Kaka.
The proverb.
The proverb.
This is the final proverb from the country.
Make noise. Make noise.
Yes, I will. Just a few points that I should mention. The predominant religion in Gabon is Christianity, 75.6%, followed closely by Islam at 12.2%. And then those who claim, it is said according to Wikipedia, who have no religion is 5.9%.
No religion.
Yani meaning the Wakoto among. Yes, yes, all right. Then there are those who have traditional faiths. Those who come from the West refer to them as animists, just that they don't know. It's not that they don't have faith, they have faith. Okay? Those are 5.7. And then others, people you couldn't place, Wakohapa, sure Pale, faith, not faith, traditional, not traditional, 0.6%. Okay? Right. This proverb I couldn't understand. So that's why I left it for Friday so that other people can help me understand it. The feathers of a dead eagle will not cover you all over.
The feathers of a dead eagle will not cover you all over.
Because they've shrunk. They've shrunk.
The feathers of an eagle shrink.
Any bird.
The feathers shrink.
When there's no life in the feathers, they've left the wing, they naturally shrink. Yeah.
So essentially, when you look at the wingspan of an eagle,
when it's alive, it's a glorious thing to see.
Yes, it is a marvelous thing to behold. Yes.
Yeah. But when it has died, of course, the wings fall and the feathers begin to shrink. It doesn't give us much coverage as it would before.
See, it's a good thing I asked.
In life, there's this robustness with life, isn't it? In death, everything seems.
You're right. Even when you die, a little time you shrink.
It's true.
Wither is the word, isn't it?
Wither, exactly. So it doesn't.
Wither.
Life provides some kind of coverage in certain things, doesn't it?
It does. The coverage that life provides
is missing.
The absence of coverage that death provides. This one, I'm going to get modern and I'm going to get hip on this one. I've gotched this one.
You've gotched it. Gotched it.
Sawa basi. Nisa sawa. Haya, fanya hivyo.
All right. On the front page of the Standard this morning, university fees funding fraud.
Wait.
Imagine there's a fraud. There's a fraud. We'll tell you about it. Administrators are asking freshmen are first year students in university, to pay fees before government completes student categorization. Remember that question you were asking, Eric? How is this going to happen? Before the categorization will determine the amounts that each learner pays, and in breach of the ministry circular that warned against charging before the process is complete.
So as that thing happens, tupatie kitu kidogo.
Ndio uende shule.
Alafu we shall,
as we're looking into this thing,
shall be considered a credit.
Yes.
Okay.
So confirmed too.
Okay.
Yes.
Africa agenda that was left out of the climate summit, something apparently they did not consider. We'll look at what that is. Rugby this weekend. Maybe that's what City will be doing this weekend, because rugby's on the charts. We're looking at the Rugby World Cup.
World Cup imeanza.
Oh
yeah, there's a guy called Uncle Michael. Mtu ya Arsenali sana. Na yeye pia ni mtu ya All Blacks. Amesema good morning.
Good morning. Amesema Alex.
Uncle Michael.
Uncle Mike.
Anajitanga Uncle Mike.
Uncle Mike. Uncle.
Okay. Salimia Uncle
So Uncle amesema hi.
Okay.
Ruto's sweet deal to sugar farmers. There's a deal on the table. Let's see if the offing will actually, put some sweetness on the tongue.
Okay.
Expulsion to nowhere is the headline on The Nation. Opposition chief Raila Odinga's ODM party has expelled 5 MPs for cozying up to President William Ruto and the ruling Kenya Kwanza alliance. The expectation is that they will lose their seats and occasioned by elections. But ODM and other parties such as Jubilee and Amani National Congress have gone down this road in the past and failed, with the MPs serving out their terms in Parliament. Will Mr. Odinga get a different outcome this time round? C'est la question. Something related to that, how Raila altered party report to save Pasaris and MPs. Okay. The CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has come out guns blazing, and he's pointing fingers, and he tells the governors, we will come for you over illegal workers. This ghost worker story that you people want to do roundabouts. We will come for you. We find out that you guys have been paying people knowingly that do not exist. Be ready to face the long arm of the law.
All right.
Digital Expo, let's tap into youth talent yet again. ICTPS urges and says maybe it's something that we need to look at. MPs have been busy, not necessarily with what you hope that they would do when it comes to asking some questions, but they've decided that, the creation of 10 to 11 new counties makes some sense. And if this goes through, there's a possibility that 11 new counties then would be created out of the existence in Kenya.
Cool beans.
So,
Sawa. Nikwambia about Business Daily. Kenya diaspora workers now face mandatory welfare levy. All Kenyans working abroad will be required to pay a mandatory contribution to a state welfare scheme if proposals by the Ministry of Labour are approved. The scheme, known as the Kenya Migrant Workers Welfare Fund, seeks to provide relief assistance to migrant workers, invalidity benefits, medical assistance, and survivor benefits where a migrant worker dies. Every migrant worker will be required to register as a member of the fund before departing the country for foreign employment. Contingency fees paid by private employment agencies will also be channeled into this fund. So basically, you're getting a job abroad, and then there'll be this fund. In the event of you need assistance, you have gone there and you have become paperless. Status. You lose status. And you need assistance. There's medical assistance that you need because you're there and you require medical assistance, and the government is coming to sort you out. Then there's also survivor benefits and bringing your body back home. All these things, now the government has a pool from which to get money to support.
And it's coming from that levy.
It's coming from that levy.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there's a benefit that your employer is paying as a contingency fee, right, it also goes into that particular kitty.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sounds interesting, right?
Very.
Okay. Nairobi hotels relish windfall from luxury suites scramble. This one is basically looking at what happened during the Africa Climate Summit and how hotels in Nairobi were just like swimming in the money. Higher ticker headlines. EABL defends Diageo's 22 billion shares purchased before the Senate. Insider fraud bleeds Sacco's 118 million shillings in 2 years. Watchdog orders sale of Sadolin in paint makers merger deal. The Commerce Competition Commission has ordered Dutch paint maker AkzoNobel and Japan's Kansai Plascon Paints to divest the Sadolin paint brand to an independent competitor as a condition for the approval of the proposed merger in the East Africa market, including Kenya. Those two big companies are merging. One of the big paint brands in this market is Sadolin. Now they're being told, you guys, if you merge, and then you still have this big one, you're going to be unfairly competitive. So what you do, you two can merge, but this paint, give it to a third independent competitor. Last Evio, don't merge.
Don't merge.
It's called antitrust.
That's what they've been told. I also have the Nairobian. Let me tell you about the Nairobian. Yeah, quick.
Quick.
Like
Okay. Wash is the big headline. Vicious racket revealed how a foreigner lost 728 million shillings in fake gold fraud. The underworld scandal involving politicians, executive businessmen, lawyers, celebrities, and now in the doorsteps of the judiciary, the fake gold racket is so vicious and has entangled big names who lure unsuspecting foreigners into dishing millions of shillings for hot air, disguised as gold bars and pellets. They've given this coverage on page 4 and 5, and they're looking at the people who have been taken to court, the scammers. I mean, this it's always a very big story and a lot of money involved. You've lost 700 million shillings. 728.
It's not a joke, man.
Jesus. This is just 272,000 shillings short of a billion. A billion.
272 billion less short of a billion. Out the window.
Sheesh. Higher. The other headline here is mystery. You remember the man called Cohen who was murdered and his body found in a septic tank?
Yeah.
And there's a murder case going on in court and all. Twists and turns in probe into Cohen's murder. They give that page 7. And then there's also another headline in the Nairobi today. This is an interesting one. They look at the various county governments and the laws that they've come up with. They some are quite weird and odd. For example, remember the Kiambu County government of William Kabogo had come up with some piece of legislation. That piece of legislation was taxing people who are dead. It featured a tax for the disposal of livestock and pet carcasses. To conduct a burial in Kiambu, the bill was demanding that the bereaved pay 4,500 for an adult, 3,000 for a child, 2,500 for an infant to conduct a burial. So this story is looking at those kind of funny bills, from grave matters to farting in public to farmers paying 4,000 for deceased animals, all those things.
Those things existed.
If you're caught farting in public in some county.
How would they? Okay. I have so many questions. But
they say like that, if you're caught smoking in public, so they've provided designated smoking areas.
designated farting point.
You know, I saw what this guy was going with. Saw it.
Are we serious? That thing was really there. You're making it up.
Sintakusomea story. Iko kwa Nairobian bwana. Other headline in the Nairobian, page 14 and 15, biting condom shortage and chlamydia threat in the country. Star.
Chlamydia is an STI. For those who do not know.
We should just drink water and mind our business.
Actually, it helps even more if you cross your fingers. Siasa.
Blame it on the shoe.
Page 16, pull out Siasa. Ruto Pan-African Vision awakens fond memories. Okay? This is Siasa pages. Many stories, many stories. Okay. Azimio top chiefs slowly embrace Ruto as president. This is Azimio leaders apparently climbing down from their long-held position, disapproving William Ruto's legitimacy as head of state. In their recent actions, public remarks and moves, opposition chiefs and politicians appear to be slowly accepting Ruto as a valid president. Yes. Okay?
Okay.
Now, there's a sad story here. There's a gentleman called Silas Muriuki. This guy spent many years trying to be MP. 20 years in total. He became MP.
That's 4 elections.
Yes. And died in the hospital.
Oh, for crying out loud.
When he became MP, lost again, but he passed away. I mean, the reason why this is a story is just the length of time somebody can want something. He got it.
Yeah.
Yes. But sadly, he has passed away.
He didn't live to deliver.
Not really. No, he lived
on his wishes.
Yeah, but you know, this thing works when you have a second term. That's how it works. Anyway, ODM rebels, remember the ones who were told, you out. They take the battle with Raila to the tribunal. Yeah?
As expected.
This is interesting. They'll make speeches, it's good. We will hear, we'll understand. This is how we understand party mechanisms, how the tribunal works and what have you. Right, costly. Migori, Meru, Wajir, Busia among counties to be split. Okay? Plot, bang in the middle of the paper. Bang, bold, black. Plot to use talks team to create 11 extra counties. Meaning there are people who are saying, this county doesn't represent us. We want our own county. And that's where costly. Meaning, if they do, Migori, okay? The Korea is saying, us.
We want ours.
Meru.
Give us our own.
Wajir. Busia. You know, This is a problem. You know, I was thinking about it.
Who in Meru wants a separate mini?
See, that's the story I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Yes, quite even usually. 26 MPs petition dialogue team to create 11 extra devolved units. I would have assumed that if you met the threshold to have a constituency, that might assist. But these guys don't, this constitution thing, they're not interested.
They don't want constituency.
No. They want county. What do you mean? The other people have. Even as we want.
25 to 7, let's take a look at traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, have we seen any changes since 6 o'clock? Not much in terms of that build-up, except on the Thika Superhighway, where we're seeing that traffic that started to come off of Outer Ring, then get heavily so as you approach the Pangani Underpass. Nothing coming off of Kiambu Road, at least not for now. And Limuru Road looks like it'll build up as we get closer to traffic hour. Still slippery and a bit of a drizzle in some parts, so let's watch out for that because we must be extra careful. All right, this is traffic coming off of Jogo Road, heading out towards Landis and then into the city via the Kamkunji roundabout. On North Airport Road, we're seeing movement then from coming in from Cabanas out towards the Eastern Bypass. But still slim pickings for now. We'll keep an eye on this and see how traffic progresses Friday. Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
A shocker for parents, which one can stand. New parents as varsities demand tuition fees. It was made clear that there was a funding model that was being put in place whereby the category of your need then determined how much you were going to get in loans as well as grants. Okay? Now, parents and students are in shock because public universities have defied the Education Cabinet Secretary, Ezekiel Machogu, and are demanding fees from first-year students before admission. A spot check reveals that at least 5 top public universities are asking parents to pay fees up to 7% of the cost of the program. By Thursday evening, vice-chancellors from Kisii University, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, Maseno University, Kenyatta University and Moi University were asking new students to pay tuition fees up to 7% of the program costs before getting admission. Students and parents who spoke to the Standard said failure to pay the amount demanded by the university then denied one admission. Kisii University, for example, blocked students from accessing some forms vital for admission until they had paid the amount demanded by the institution. A parent whose daughter was admitted on Wednesday said that he had to pay 10,000 shillings before they could download the B5 form, which is a requirement for admission. Jaquat, a student, admitted that the parent had to pay the 7% fees before admission. Maseno, students are set to report beginning September 24th, but among requirements, they will need to clear the equivalent of 7% of the tuition fees before admission. Machogu had directed that no university student shall be denied admission because of fees. In a circular dated August 24th to all vice-chancellors of public universities and principals of constituent colleges, Machogu ordered them to admit all learners, and I quote, "Universities and colleges shall admit all students from the 2022 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education cohort as placed by the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services, KUSPS, pending the processing of their applications for funding."
But what madness is this?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So you're ordering them, take people, don't charge them a shilling.
Yeah, because we're waiting for
How
the
do we
funding model
operate?
to get in place.
Do you remember the time when they tried this with the schools?
They've done the same, even in school, just 2 weeks ago.
What happened?
School said
there's a
very
battle
good,
between
however,
parents and
you're paying that fees.
Yeah.
Schools will just say it's okay. However,
we've heard what
we
heard so and so said, but
in order for
you
us
come
to
here,
operate,
pay fees.
And it's the same thing that now is happening, and that's why the Standard is calling it a funding fraud.
Yes.
Because you're being told, all right, you're going to get funding if you apply. We've extended it by 2 weeks, but then you are reporting to university immediately. Should they have then maybe extended the university admission dates?
They should have, by virtue of the fact that they extended the funding date until October 10th. Remember, it was supposed to have closed by October 8th. It was supposed to have closed by yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Coming from the ministry, they said, let's extend this application until October. Now, if you've done that and you know that the funding is prerequisite for admission, because how are you going to fund your schooling, right? And if you know that that was going to happen, then you should have also extended admission dates.
How do you actually sort this thing out? Because you see, there are dates and timelines, all right? There's a timeline. The KCSE results are released within a certain timeline.
Yes, after 4 weeks.
Okay. And then you get your CUSIPS placement after a certain time. And that's how you have that window of even changing your application. Then you receive your admission letter. Then you're told, when you receive your admission letter, reporting date is on this day, because there's a calendar.
Yes.
Right? That universities, September, we start the academic year. The government will not be able to have processed freshers within that time. You have applied for this course. This is how much your course costs. Apply now for funding to the university's fund. Then we categorize you, know whether you're needy or not. Then we know how much we're giving you. Then you get a loan. We are told there's no time. Should the university calendar for first years begin, at least for first years, because the second year you already categorized. Should the first year intake go to January?
The same way that we see that class 8s, for example, who finish this year, they go to secondary school in February, when everybody else resumes in January. For this reason, because people are still trying to settle, look for schools, figure out this, that, the other thing, and then they start in February, about a month after everybody else has gone to school. I have been saying that these changes have not been thoroughly thought out, and if you have something that has not been planned properly, this is what you get, an absolute mess in terms of implementation. Do you expect these institutions to now say, actually, you know what, we're waiting for the ministry to sort out this whole thing, let us just take you in and start? Where are they supposed to get the funding from?
They can't.
Where? What are they supposed to do?
They can't. In many of these cases, there's accommodation involved.
Yeah, there is.
So we are paying bills.
That is outsourced.
Yes.
Yes. Not all public universities have on-campus residents. They outsource flats and things like that. They have to pay for them because a lot of times they are private or they're commercial entities. You pay for them. So what is supposed to happen?
Yeah, this is...
So and there's a reason why, if you look at it, the 7% is across board. So there's a conversation somebody's having with the other, and they're saying, look, guys, we can't do this. If at least 7% will allow us to get you through.
Leteni pesa kidogo.
Ndio tuanze, alafu baadaye.
And then here's Machogu saying, don't pay. And Machogu knows.
No, it's hard, man.
No, this is not nice. It's not nice. Not good at all.
It's not fraud, it's just a mess.
No, it's just not good at all. You know, to that student who has received the admission letter and they're coming from very far and they're coming to report to university.
The
and
last
they've been told
of
not to
everything,
pay.
Ender 2.
Yeah.
Alone.
That one. And then you arrive here, you're told, you need to pay.
Aye.
You need to pay 15,000 shillings. You don't have 15,000.
The last of whoever somebody gave you was for you to get on that bus to get to wherever, to get to Eldoret or to get to Juja.
Wherever you're going.
Yeah.
And chances are you've never been there before.
Yeah.
So you don't know anyone there. Yeah. So this thing of how are you supposed to sort yourself out?
Okay. So let's talk about this expulsion to nowhere. Right? Just quickly. There's page 4 and page 5 of The Nation that gives this story, some kipaumbele. Apparently, Raila altered the report to save some ODM rebels.
Yeah.
ODM leader Raila Odinga radically altered the stinging proposals and harsh punishment recommended by the party's disciplinary committee to save 3 rebel MPs, the Nation can reveal. Details of the report by the committee led by Professor Bernard Sianya have also lifted the lead on the drama and back and forth between the team and the rebels during this disciplinary hearings. The report obtained by the Nation further gives credence to allegations that the fallout within Azimio la Umoja may have been triggered by skewed allocation of parliamentary committees. Odinga and top party officials in NEC amended the document to drop the expulsion of one of the accused MPs. They also revised the fines for some of the rebels from a high of 5 million shillings to 1 million bob. Recommendations to suspend some of the MPs from parliament for 12 months were also dropped. According to the report, the disciplinary committee had recommended expulsion of Nairobi woman rep Esther Passaris, along with MPs Elisha Odhiambo, Karoli Omondi, Gideon Ochanja, Felix Odiwar, and Kisumu Senator Tom Ojienda. But when the party officials emerged from NEC to address the press in a briefing attended by Ms. Pasaris, she was present.
So, you know.
The party ordered her to apologize and pay 250k.
Yeah.
In fact, during the hearings, she told the disciplinary committee that she would again defy him and vote in favor of the bill if it came back to the National Assembly. The report states. The report also recommends the Uriri MP Mark Nyamita be suspended for 12 months from all parliamentary committees, adding that during the 12 months, the MP should be disqualified from holding any elective or appointive office within the party or on behalf of the party. Mm-hmm. That this member be fined 5 million shillings to be paid within 60 days of the NEC decision. Within 60 days, pay 5 million. However, after the NEC meeting, the MP was ordered to pay a fine of 1 million and to apologize.
If they had stayed for another hour, it would have come down even.
Apologize. The lawmaker was accused of promoting the position of Kenya Kwanza. The report also recommends that Rongo MP Paul Abor face the same punishment as Nyamita. That is, 5 million suspension from all committees. Don't represent this party anywhere. According to the report, Abur told the committee that his trouble with the party started when some of them were shortchanged in the coalition of parliamentary committee seats. He went further and presented evidence where the highest allocation to an individual was 5 committees, while a number of other members were on 1 committee. Some of us are just in 1 committee. Right. Some of you people are in 5 committees.
How?
Munakula tu allowance.
Very bad.
Sources in the party said the changes in the report were made after sustained lobbying and pleading by some of the MPs. But ODM chairman John Buddy downplayed any behind the scenes. The disciplinary committee can make a recommendation, but the NEC has the power to uphold the recommendations, make changes, or drop them altogether. So those ones are for expulsion, those ones. Esther Pasaris, it's okay.
Just say sorry.
Kina Mark Nyamita, it's okay. Just pay 1 million.
This committee that determines the fate of MPs, who are the members?
The disciplinary committee.
John Buddy is one of them?
No, it's chaired by Professor Sihanya. Members of NEC are not. So there's a Kaholka unit.
Oh, NEC is separate from disciplinary, and there's no member of NEC that is in the disciplinary committee.
The disciplinary committee is members who, many of them are not even elected. So they sit there.
Remember to already party members, yes.
Yeah, chaired by a reputable lawyer. Come. Letter. Then they present a report to NEC. NEC looks at it and decides, makes sense, does not make sense.
Pass it, don't pass it.
One of the things that I think we've witnessed in matters such as this one, where there's been dispute within parties, those in the disciplinary committee or NEC, they always bear the brunt of the blame. There's some members who don't want this, there's some members who want this, which also now tells you of the intrigues and the goings on in a party, the divisions, preferences, because there are those who argue that this is an opportunity for some people to settle scores that they have with other people. But also an opportunity for them to show that they are no-nonsense people. You don't joke. Okay? What you mean? This is our party, and you dare.
Imagine.
Again, if you look at the history of this country, this thing of somebody being in one party and trying to get a dance with the other party started a heck of a long time ago, my friend. So I don't see it ending soon.
It will not. Do you see these people actually, this expulsion being upheld by the dispute tribunal? The political parties dispute
tribunal is going to look at the facts, and they're going to say these are our rules, and this is what we see happening.
They're going to sift the facts.
Yes. Now that is story 1. Story 2, there'll be petitions. Guys, you can review this thing yourselves. I mean, even somebody makes just one mistake,
allow them, Bwana.
Come on, Bwana. Then the others who perhaps are more belligerent and more combative will say, what? Who are these people?
How do you go and score goals?
Well, has Baba said anything? Has he spoken?
If Baba tells me to go,
I will go. But at who? What is them again? Forget it. Not going anywhere.
What's the fact tomorrow we have a rally in Animator?
I'm coming. Sometimes you get the impression that when the whip is cracked, it's for people to say, look, guys, we made a mistake here.
Negotiation.
Please. It is negotiation. This is politics after all. So you attack it harshly.
Make it seem as though...
You make it hot. So now, you've set the tone for the negotiation. So you know me.
Tulikuwa pamoja hata
tumetoka mbali. Yes.
Haya. Chiti?
I am looking at the sitar.
Okay.
Right. You asked me to tell you this story, which is on page 2. Right. Let me just read so that you understand. Silas Muriuki,
yes,
the former North Imenti MP, spent 20 years of his life seeking to be elected in Parliament. He won the seat for one term before losing it. He never recaptured it despite running 2 more times. Now, if you're looking for a definition of effort and determination, surely, does it get any better than this?
No.
Okay, he highlighted his struggle in a speech he gave in Parliament on 14th April 2008. I wish to thank my constituents of North Imenti who have made it possible for me to come to this august house after struggling for the last 20 years to be here. It has not been a short journey. It has been a long one. I should hope so. But eventually I'm here, he said. He was a man who had a passion for farming and conserving the environment. His stint in Parliament was largely quiet, working in silence and shying away from TV cameras and scribes. This is a man who knew why he had been elected.
Okay.
I chose this story.
Was he speaking in Parliament?
When
so he may not be going for public rallies and all these things and speaking blah, blah, blah.
He hardly spoke.
But in Parliament itself.
But the person who defeated him, you must understand, was a gentleman called Dawood Abdul Rahim.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Now, Rahim is now serving his 3rd term. Okay.
Yeah.
The story of effort. Now, he died at the age of 74 in Nairobi Hospital while undergoing treatment. People pass away. It's the eventuality that is a certainty for all of us.
Yeah.
But it's the determination. When somebody tries for 20 years and then 2 more terms, that's around 30 years of trying. I mean, talk about determination and effort. 30 years.
He wanted it.
No, this is something he definitely wanted.
He didn't stop wanting it till he got it.
He never did.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, against the backdrop of the story was telling, and this is why I chose this particular one, of those ODM MPs. It'll be a test of whether they want to remain in ODM or not. Yes.
Munataka aje?
Yeah, we will see. Effort. Mwanaume ni effort.
Oh, wow. Well done.
We will see.
Okay.
And after we have seen, do over to you.
After we have seen, we will see. Okay.
It's a looking thing.
It is a looking thing.
The CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Twalib Abdallah Mbarak, appeared before the Public Accounts Committee a while back. And they were looking at some numbers that he was uncomfortable with. After some investigations, they've come out to say that governors who hire personal staff beyond the prescribed limit will now be held personally liable to repay public funds paid out as salaries to illegal employees. You hire these people, you will pay. Number 1. The EACC says it will initiate civil recoveries from individual governors as part of its mandate to protect public funds. In a circular sent out by the CEO to all governors, and he wrote to them directly, didn't go through the corner. He said that the Salaries and Remuneration Commission and the Controller of Budget also were in that communication. And he told governors that they're notorious for breaching the guidelines on recruitment of staff for their offices and that the trend should stop. He said it has come to the attention of the Commission that in some counties, this is flagrant breach of the existing guidelines on recruitment of staff for the Executive Office of the Governor. In particular, relevant circulars previously issued by the Transitional Authority and the SRC limit the staff in the Governor's office and the following officers to the following officers with clearly defined conditions of service: Chief of Staff, Economic Advisor, Political Advisor, Legal Advisor, Director of Government Press, and Support Staff, personal assistant, personal secretary, cook, driver, messenger, and a gardener. He says that one will allow you.
That is what is allowed.
Yes.
Okay.
Now he's not understanding where all these other people are coming from. For example, the governor of Wajir, Ahmed Abdullahi, is said to have hired 51 personal advisors. So that one has gone above and beyond
the stipulated
number of advisors, because you can only have one economic advisor, one political advisor, and one legal advisor. So these other people,
51.
what are they doing? You've overshot by 48. What's going on?
And are they getting a salary?
Yes.
Or are they getting just an allowance?
Being paid 93 million is the amount of money out of the 43 of the 51 staff who had no proof of processing the relevant qualifications.
Okay.
Above.
But here's the thing, though. It's okay for Major Twalib to actually talk to the governors, but who employs people in counties? It is not the governor. If they are public servants, then there is a county public service board that employs you, that processes your payment. Major Twalib should be talking to the county public service boards and saying, you, chair of Wajir County Public Service Board, how did you create this office? Why are you paying? Why did you create an office and procedurally? Why are you paying this person and procedurally? Because those ones are paid. The governor doesn't actually sign their pay slip.
The payroll?
Doesn't. The person to go to, in fact, FCP Abdullahi, if FCP Abdullahi is taken, it'll be like, me.
Where?
The public service board gave me, I said I want advisors. The county public service board created the office.
They gave me 51 advisors. I don't know all of them.
Surely.
I see the ones I'm supposed to be saying, I don't know where these other people are. Now, you see that? I don't know where these other people are.
Yeah.
Now, Twalib is saying, that cannot be your excuse. You must know what is going on under your roof. Now,
attack that thing.
We are telling you
need to
go and make sure that things are sorted out. In the event that you do not, we do what? We come for you.
He'll find himself in such a political cesspool. Just go for, this is the office. You are supposed to be the ones who employ people in this county. Why are you employing people who are outside of the mandate? That's Major Twalib hapo hivyo anacheza siasa kitamramba. Kitamramba. Let me tell you now, we're talking about counties. Quick.
Yeah.
These odd bills. Okay, I told you about Kabogo in 2013 coming up with a bill saying if you want to ensure that the county can fund 12.6 billion shilling budget, people are required to pay for burying their relatives. And if you're not a resident of Kiambu, you pay 25,000 shillings for burying your loved one in Kiambu. The bill was also proposing that families should pay 30,000 for maintenance work in the cemeteries. In the event of exhumation, you pay 15,000 shillings for an adult, 10,000 for a child, 5,000 for an infant. And if you are a farmer, you pay 4,000 shillings for every deceased cow, pig, donkey, or horse, 400 bob for chickens and cats.
Really?
Before the county can collect the carcasses. This didn't pass in Parliament.
Before they can collect.
Yes. He said, no, this one is going to be very, very unpopular. Okay, let me take you elsewhere. In August 2013, a bill targeting women who used border borders as a means of transport was rejected at Kisumu's County Assembly. Former Kisumu North MCA Caroline Owen had proposed a motion in the Assembly to impose fines on women for sitting inappropriately on border borders. According to her, women should sit with their legs together, facing sideways on the border, not sitting with their legs apart, facing forward.
How did that get
How
into
are you
the
supposed
news?
to ride the thing?
No. How did this? Who wrote that article?
It got into the
in
news
Nairobi.
because it was a bill that was before Parliament.
Yeah, imagine it was actually before Parliament.
It was a bill before the County Assembly of Kisumu in 2013. It didn't pass. In 2019, a bill presented by then Kisumu Central Health CEC, Dr. Ojwang Lucy, was passed. It came into existence following reports of fishermen in the area using mosquito nets for fishing, which frustrated the County Health Department's efforts to combat malaria. It placed a restriction on the mesh sizes and types of nets. That one for mosquito net passed. In separate development, 2018, County Government of Lamu implemented a ban on vehicles and motorbikes accessing Old Town. They were being told, Tumia Punda. Old Town, Punda. And another one. In 2013, August, Makueni Majority Leader Francis Mutuku introduced the bill proposing the allocation of 10% of the county's revenues to the church.
A big.
That is very important. Work to the church. Let me take you finally in Mombasa in 2014. An MCA proposed a bill that sought to have residents arrested for farting in public. The MCA aimed to declare public farting illegal. However, the bill faced strong opposition. 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. ODM members of parliament expelled from the party on Wednesday are now headed to the political party's dispute tribunal in a bid to overturn the verdict. The expelled lawmakers vowed to take the war to the political party's dispute tribunal, where they hope to get justice over the decision they insist is discriminatory and selective. Kisumu Senator Tom Ojienda unapologetically dismissed his expulsion from the Orange Party and vowed he wouldn't be intimidated to cut links with President William Ruto. Bondo MP Gideon Ochanda and Uriri MP Mark Nyamita on their part have defended themselves, saying that the only reason they met with the president was to discuss development for their constituencies.
Recognizing the president as the president of the republic, that's not a mistake. Visiting the head of state is not a mistake. Going to state house is a public office, is not a mistake. So as at now, we still don't know exactly why we are facing these disciplinary actions. And if that is the case, there are very many of us, including even the heads of the parties, have gone to state house and have met the president. So why this kind of selective justice?
I think we just need to come to a level of maturity that people can engage, but we can engage in official capacity. Many of my colleagues, even in our day-to-day running, we interact with the government through cabinet secretaries coming in our committees. We go to their offices to try and follow up on our projects. What is so difficult, because those cabinet secretaries report to the president.
The death toll in the accident involving a PSV and a transit goods vehicle at the area near Voi along the Nairobi-Mombasa highway has risen to 13. Voi OCPD Ben Stein Shari says the Mombasa-bound PSV collided head-on with a transit trailer, resulting in several deaths on the spot. He said 3 people who sustained injuries are still in critical condition and receiving treatment at the Moi County Referral Hospital in Voi.
Uchunguzi unaendelea ili tuweze kubainisha hasa kilichosababisha hiyo ajali. Na kwa madereva, ningependa kuwaambia madereva wote ambao wanatumia hii Mombasa Nairobi highway wawe waangalifu wakati wanapoendesha magari katika barabara hii, wafuate sheria za barabarani.
14 governors from counties involved in sugar farming are expected to attend a one-day conference to discuss issues affecting the sector, especially in Nyanza and the western parts of the country. The conference, which will be held today at Masinde Muliro University in Kakamega, is expected to provide a permanent solution to the sector, which has suffered many problems, including sugarcane farmers' arrears and the lack of appropriate policies to boost it. Kakamega Governor Fernandes Baraza, who is the host of the conference, said that stakeholders in the sugar industry will discuss the main issues affecting public sugar industries.
We're expecting to have discussions around how to come up with solutions to revitalize the sugar sector. And some of the areas of discussion, of course, will be looking at cane production, which is a critical component. We'll delve in issues around the farmers' welfare. Of course, the pricing of the sugar that we produce here will be a factor. One of the other discussions that is critical is around the management model of the sugar sector, which will be discussed. People will bring around some thought leadership with regard to appropriate management model so that we can see a difference in our sugar, especially the public sugar factories.
This is happening while leaders in the region have continued to praise President William Ruto's move to confront those who are hampering the growth of the sugar industry in the country.
We want machines zetu zifanye kazi without interference of another machine. Kama Butali inafanya, ifanye. Rai afanye na mashini yake vizuri. Na mimi naongea because I am a farmer. Anyone who will criticize me, nikishaongea nitamuuliza, take me to your sugarcane farm. Nipeleke kwa miwa yako, nithibitishe you are a farmer before you talk. And if you know you are not a farmer, shut up.
The National Police Service and the Attorney General have been ordered by the court to pay former Kilome MP John Harun Mwao 8.4 million shillings as compensation value of his Range Rover. Milimani High Court Judge Asena Thangeri ruled that NPS and AG had violated Mwao's property rights by detaining his car in June 2011 and exposing it to more than 6 years of damaging elements. Besides paying the amount, she also ordered that the police service and the AG pay for Mwao the cost of the suit and interest at court rates. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, how has it changed as we're coming into 7 o'clock? Traffic now building up on the Thika Superhighway. It's going to get quite heavy as you're going towards the Pangani underpass. Not yet happening on Kiambu Road, but we will see that. Coming out of Westlands, we're all right. And a little bit of traffic building up on Mombasa Road. Not quite sure where that's going. As you come in from Cabanas towards North Airport Road, out towards the Outer Ring Junction, further out towards the Eastern Bypass, we'll see a build up there as well. We're going to keep an eye on things and see how it opens. It's not too crazy this Friday. We'll probably see more outbound traffic than in. But again, eyes on things. Let's see what it looks like. Talk to us about what you might see or find. Spice FM KE on X.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
After 7, how are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of the Situation Room. Happy Friday, wherever you're tuned in. Today, the 8th day of September, 2023. It's Health Friday, and we're going to have a Health Friday conversation shortly. We start by talking about health, physical health, which also works very well with your mental health. Run. Running is important.
And you can run. Come the 29th of October, the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon is going to take the 20th edition by storm. Looking at over the last 20 years and how this marathon has helped many. And you have an opportunity to be involved in that this year once again. www.nairobimarathon.com. You can register there for 2,000 shillings. The virtual run takes place a week before. The physical run takes place on that 29th Sunday. And you get a chance to help the Future Makers program, where the disadvantaged, especially girls and people living with disability, have an opportunity to earn, learn, and grow. It's the 20th edition. It's a special one. It's a big deal. Let's get out, register, and run. Come the 29th of October. 2,000 shillings.
2 G's.
2,000 shillings.
Only.
Yes.
Okay. Victoria Rika is a clinical and counseling psychologist. She's here today on this Health Friday to have a conversation with us about mental health challenges and why you should speak up. Victoria, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
To the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Karibu sana. We're going to have this conversation about mental health. We like having these conversations constantly because we know experts have told the government, I don't know whether it has listened, but the government has not acted. Experts have told the government that mental health is a national emergency in this country. And so we'll play our part by talking about it. To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb. This week's proverbs are from
the country of Gabon, otherwise known as the Gabonese Republic, but normally referred to as just Gabon. All right? This is the last day of these proverbs from this country. The feathers of a dead eagle will not cover you all over.
The feathers of a dead eagle will not cover you all over.
Yes.
Victoria, what do you make of this proverb? What do you think they're saying, the Gabonese?
It's a tricky one. The feathers of a dead eagle. You know, I'm already thinking, so how many feathers does it take to cover? Yeah. Quite a tricky one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's assume that the feathers of an eagle when it's alive would cover you, and those of a dead one would not cover you.
Then there's a disparity there, right? Because whether it's dead or alive, then the feathers should be enough to cover you either way.
So what's your interpretation of the proverb? What do you think they're saying?
I think there's no equity. Yeah, it sounds like there's lack of equity somewhere.
In life
Not
and in
sure
death.
where.
In life and
yeah,
in death.
but it sounds like there's lack of equity. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, City?
You know, if Ndu hadn't chimed in the first hour and explained something that I actually did not understand and I had not fathomed, that feathers are living parts of an avian creature. And when that creature dies, so do the feathers. And so they wither, they shrink in size. See, an eagle is known for the majesty of, among other things, its talons and also its wingspan. Now, when it dies, all that shrinks. Yes. So, life gives meaning. Death also has its meaning. A reduced version of what previously existed. Yes.
Makes
See
sense.
that? Makes sense.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Yes, it does.
You're welcome to the show courtesy of Dairy Best Long Life Milk. You know Dairy Best? Yeah. These are the first guys who actually decided to pack long life milk the way they do. And they say, you buy this, you keep it. You don't have to think about refrigeration and all because it's long life and the way it's treated. And when you give people chai, don't put the chai from...
This Nairobi type chai where milk, Japanni,
You can count
maji, ndovu. No, not those ones. No.
Chai kweli in a Dairy Best long life milk ya kutosha. You agree?
Yes, yes.
Good. Now, you're a clinical and a counseling psychologist. That means those are two distinct, different things. What's the difference?
Well, there is a difference because if you're practicing clinical psychology, then it means that you're dealing with people who have mental health issues. Not to say that if you're doing clinical psychology, you cannot counsel people who have what we call normal life issues, like relationship problems. But when you talk about counseling psychology, then it means that you do not have the element of clinical, meaning that you may not deal with people who have mental health issues.
Okay.
So that would be the distinction.
Okay. So you do both?
I do both because I studied clinical psychology, but I studied counseling psychology, but work in a clinical setting because I also did a diploma in advanced mental health.
Okay.
Where you learn about psychopathologies, management, and how to take care of patients who are going through mental illnesses.
Where do you practice?
I practice at Chiromo Hospital Group, which is a leading level 5 mental health facility, which has 5 branches here in Nairobi and 1 in Nyeri. Recently, we opened an outpatient clinic at Upper Hill Medical Center to take care of people who would rather come in and walk out, without really going to a mental health facility because there's still so much stigma around. Yeah.
Why is there so much stigma?
It's easy for you to talk about having gone to the dentist, right? And you'll even refer your colleagues to a very good dentist who took out your tooth painlessly, or you'll talk about your gynecologist, for us women especially. But when it comes to mental health matters, hardly will you talk about, I went and saw my psychiatrist, he diagnosed me bipolar. Because we perceive people who have mental health issues to be weird, to be awkward. So you're having bipolar, you're having depression, you're having schizophrenia, you're looked at as someone who is of lesser ability. People look at you in a different way. So if you come to the work environment and say, I've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I am on medication, people will look at you like you're a fish out of water. And they will probably treat you differently. They'll give you lighter duties. You'll be discriminated against. There will be stigma simply because when you're suffering from a mental illness, you're perceived to be something that is not, normal, for lack of a better word.
Let me ask this question differently. When we stigmatize, What exactly are we reacting to? What is it about us? Forget the person we're stigmatizing. What is it about us and our understanding of that situation that makes us conduct our activities in that way? These activities that we do equals to stigma.
We actually do not understand. We are stigmatizing because we do not understand, right? Maybe I should have started by giving a definition of what mental health is, because right now we are 4 of us in this studio. And according to statistics by World Health Organization, 1 in every 4 is experiencing or will experience a mental health disorder. So what does that tell you? That one of us here?
Hold. You're going by World Health Statistics to say one of us is off.
Yes.
Meaning traveling the stratosphere.
One of you is not okay.
Right now or at some point they will experience, right?
Me, I'm volunteering.
Are you volunteering to experience?
No, that me, I'm traveling.
That is 1 in every 4, right? So that takes us then to the definition of what is mental health. Yeah. And we are saying, again, according to the World Health Organization, that it's actually a state of well-being where, number 1, you're able to realize your full potential. So if you're not realizing your full potential, and by full potential we are referring to, take us back to when we were in high school, primary school, and you'd get your report cards. And they'd say, Victoria, you're scoring 60% in mathematics, whereas you have the ability or the potential to score 80%, meaning you're living below your potential. So if you come to the work environment and you're barely doing more than you're supposed to, because if you're living according to your potential, it means that you're not only meeting your ability, but you're living beyond your ability, isn't it? So if you're not meeting your full potential, if you're not able to cope with the normal stresses of life, what are the normal stresses of life? It could be traffic jam. It could be had an argument with Eric, with you just have had a tiff at the work environment. You're not able to process your emotions and you project them on the rest of the colleagues. So you're not able to handle the normal life stresses. Are you being productive at the work environment? Are you being fruitful? Are you also making a contribution to the community? That is the definition of mental health. So if you're not meeting that definition, then we say your mental health is compromised. So you do not have to be out on the street speaking papers and running around naked for us to say you have a mental health problem. No, absolutely.
Just screaming at your co-workers could be a pointer. I'm looking at you because you're about to ask a question.
Oh, really? Well, thank you for that clarification. So how do these present themselves? Before I go to then asking what are some of the ones that we see, because usually when we hear that somebody might be suffering from, mental health challenges, the first thing that we think is, okay, this person is off their rocker, and that in itself could be a label of, stigmatization without actually realizing what it is. So what are some of the things that will jump out at you to say, okay, well, maybe there may be something here. I could scream at somebody, as an example today, and maybe I was just having a bad day. But do we see habitual behavior for you to say, okay, there could be something here?
That's a very good question. And ordinarily when it comes to mental, it's also important, first of all, define that you can have mental health problems because I could be having an issue which I'm trying to sort out, it's not going away, therefore I'm suffering from a mental health problem, which is not an illness, right? But for an illness, there must be those symptoms which you recognize, which are not there, right? And we normally say for you to diagnose a mental health patient, as a mental health patient, you must look at 4 pointers. Number 1, the symptoms that they're experiencing must be causing them distress. Because we do have mental illnesses where you will hear voices, you will see things which other people are not seeing, but in their reality, they are actually there. So of course that is causing them distress. It's not only causing them distress, but also the people around them. Because assuming you see Eric right now talking, and he's alone, he's talking to someone who is not there according to you, but in his reality, that person is there. So that's number 1, distress. Number 2, the symptoms they're experiencing must be a danger to them or to the people around them. Again, if you're hearing voices or seeing things which are not there, ordinarily the voices they hear are telling them negative things, like go and hit that person, go and jump off a cliff. So they're a danger to them as well as to the people around them. Again, the symptoms they're experiencing must be causing them dysfunctionality. Because if you're going through, for example, depression, you have zero motivation to even do things that you love. I love my job so much, but I can barely get myself to get out of bed to go to work. So dysfunction. And then it must also be a deviance from what is happening within the community. By deviance, I mean if a pregnant woman is eating those stones, I can't remember what we call them, that's okay.
The clay chalk.
Yeah, the clay chalk, right? That's okay within that setup because she's expecting. So the body is probably demanding some minerals. But if I see you, a gentleman seated in a corner eating the same thing, then that's a deviance from the society, right? So the symptoms that you look for must tie up to those 4 diagnostic criteria. But then again, we say, how is your sleep pattern? Are you sleeping too much or sleeping too little? Right? Are you having insomnia, lack of sleep, or hypersomnia, you're sleeping too much? What about your appetite patterns? Have they changed? Maybe you're eating too much or eating too little. You could also be having change in moods, and also maybe lack of motivation. You could also be having what we call suicidal thoughts. And it's important for us to note that September is also Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. And sometimes you could also carry out those ideas of suicide. So you make a suicide attempt. There could also be change in your behavior. Maybe sometimes you also come to the workplace smelling of a bit of alcohol, a bit of marijuana, because you're going through something and you're trying to cope. So you come to the office and someone can say, hey, by the way, Victoria, when you passed by me, there was a bit of alcohol, which previously they knew Victoria does not take alcohol. So all those are symptoms. But remember, they must tie up in some certain sort of criteria, because, for example, depression, you must have the symptoms continually for not less than 2 weeks. So if you're having a bad day, you scream at someone, it's just one day, we'll not diagnose you with a mental illness.
But then there's this little matter of continuity of not just social norms, but how we as human beings exist within these social norms. Then there are circumstances that disrupt the flow of norms. And so in our attempt to try and cope with it, sometimes we find ourselves a little dislocated. There's that. But then there are diseases that affect the mind, and as they affect the mind, then we behave in a manner that is not considered normal. And sometimes these disruptions can affect it to the point where it does again affect our minds, to the point where now it becomes a disease, meaning the troubles. Now, would we say, for instance, that the awareness and the understanding of mental health, or the expanded awareness, coupled with the dynamics of what we call the ever-changing social norms in modern society, are a great contributor to this mental health story that we keep talking about?
Yes, I agree with you, right? They're a great contributor. What you've mentioned in terms of you could actually have things which predispose you towards an illness, which then triggers a mental illness.
Yes.
That is very possible, isn't it?
Yes.
Because sometimes you have, for example, TB of the brain, and you become, the symptoms could also be mistaken for a psychotic illness.
Yes.
Psychotic illness meaning you're out of touch with reality. And again, you can be so pressed by life, you already have a mental illness, it predisposes you then to something like, for example, even some cancers, right? Some gastrointestinal issues, and it's coming from the mental illness. So it cuts both ways. It could be a physical leading to a mental, or a mental leading to a physical illness. Which is why we also tell people, like, for example, when you're stressed, the symptoms will manifest themselves physically. You'll even have, back strains, you'll have headaches, you'll even have colds and flus. Why? Because when you're stressed, your immune system goes down, so you become more susceptible to infections.
What are some of the more regular, should I say, when you see people, what are some of the conditions that we're talking about that are prevalent in Kenya today? I'm going to ask that off the back of, sitting in this room and reading stories as we do over the last year, we never have to look very far to see some of the things that are happening as a result of what maybe one would peg towards mental health. People taking their own lives and taking the lives of others and then taking their own lives. Usually has a problem with some kind of financial challenge or financial burden. People not being able to pay their bills, and then they, certain things. But as you've mentioned, some bipolar depression. What are the most prevalent conditions that we are seeing in Kenya today?
That would be depression and anxiety. That is what is most prevalent. And of course, there's also alcoholism, which is also a mental illness. So mainly within the working population is depression and anxiety and alcoholism. And amongst the children, we also have what is mainly undiagnosed, what we call ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which for many people will say it's a Western disease, our children don't suffer from that, and why didn't we have it when we were growing up? There's that argument, but it is there. It's one of the diagnoses that we have. But mainly amongst the working population would be depression and anxiety.
Do those two come together, depression and anxiety, and how do they manifest themselves?
Usually when you're having a mental illness, it's unlikely that you'll be having one.
Okay.
Right, we have what we call a comorbidity. If you're suffering, for example, from depression, then you may be likely to have anxiety. If you're suffering from anxiety, you may be likely to have alcohol use disorder. So the symptoms of depression will be mainly what I mentioned. You may be sleeping too much, you may be sleeping too little, your sleep and appetite patterns will change, and you have no motivation. Initially, you really loved your job, but at some point you feel, I really don't want to go to work. And then you become also very isolative. If you're trying to manage the depression, you may try to use something like alcohol or marijuana, which is now where the other illness now comes in. It started off as a coping mechanism, then you became addicted. Right? Then if the depression really goes on, you may have what we call suicidal ideations or suicidal ideas. You start thinking, even if I were to die, no one would really care. You become very hopeless, you feel helpless, and you feel like nothing can really work again. And that's why someone sometimes will start giving off very valuable things. You're giving out your laptop, you're telling someone you can actually have the keys to my new car, and you are actually suicidal. And of course, if it really becomes full-blown, then you attempt and maybe even complete. Maybe it's interesting to mention that while women are more depressed and while women make more attempts, men usually die more. The numbers of men dying are more.
Meaning they succeed.
They
succeed, yes. Because they use more violent means. Yeah, they use more violent means. So the statistics will say that women are more depressed, women attempt suicide more, but the number of people dying from suicide are mainly men.
Why?
Because they use more violent means.
Why?
Right? I think they have a sense of finality. Probably for us women, you'll still be thinking of maybe your children, You're still thinking of, and I could be wrong, do you really still want to do this? Because you're thinking about your children. But for men, they do to the finality that I'm done. Because I think we can admit that men are not as much, and I could probably get some stones from these, are not as much attached to the children as we women are. So I think even in the final throes of suicide, a man may not be thinking about children. For him, it's just getting the job done and checking out.
Actually, perhaps we should bring it to the emotions. Men are not emotionally as resilient as women.
Yes, that too.
Yes, and the socialization specifically of men, let me talk about African men, doesn't actually give them an advantageous position of coping with emotional issues. Now, if you look at how it is that we as men make as part of our persona the material things we acquire over time, our cars, our jobs, our titles, and what have you, when anything affects these things, we suddenly feel dehumanized. And suddenly, we cannot present ourselves in quite the same light as we present ourselves before. So, that if a sense of hopelessness is allowed to continue, then suicide isn't really very far away. Simply because you will feel that you amount to very little, if not nothing.
Yes. So it pushes now the men to that finality, that thing of, okay, I really don't have a fallback position.
Yes, because we aren't socialized to think in terms of alternatives and how you can actually acquire a fallback. And if I may put it simply, in my mind, it is, we are not taught as African men to learn humility.
Right. I read something, and I don't know if this would be right. I read something a couple of months ago when it was actually talking about then this split between women and depression, and then anxiety and going towards suicide, and then men. Again, the socialization of men, communication of feeling or sentiment is not something that they've been socialized to do. And so in the position whereby suicide becomes an option, you're not going to be talking to anybody about it. You've already made the decision, and you have seen the opposite side of hopelessness. And you don't ever, as a man, want to go back there. So it is not far off for you to make the decision, because the alternate is harrowing, and you've been there, and you're not communicating with anybody, and you will finish the job, essentially. Would that resonate with what you've seen or heard?
Yes, absolutely, because when you look at how we bring up the little boys, for those of us who are bringing up boys, there's a way that you socialize them. So, for example, if he trips and falls and starts crying, what do you tell him? Men don't cry, man up, men don't cry. But what happens if your small girl falls? You want to cuddle her, hug her, and tell her, "Mommy, are you hurt?" You really cuddle her and pamper her. So men grow up knowing that you don't express your emotions, that it's not a manly thing for you to cry. Take, for example, when a family is bereaved and everyone else is crying, the wife is crying, the children are crying, but who mans up for the rest of the family? It's the man. But who takes care of this man? At what point does he get to express his emotions? So probably he will go to the club and try and talk to his colleagues at the club. But because men are not socialized to also listen to, all those emotions, how do they help him? It's probably by telling him, you take another round of beer. This one is on me, right? So they're not able to express themselves. Yeah. So it becomes very hard for men to come out there and talk about what they're experiencing. And it goes back to how they've been socialized as children growing up.
And that talking is why you're here this morning, to tell us why it's important for us to speak. And as we deal with mental health issues. Let's take a break. 7:30, Kenya's biggest conversation on this Health Friday. We are hosting Victoria Rika. She's a clinical and counseling psychologist. She's from the Chiromo group of hospitals. She's here to talk about mental health challenges and why you should speak up. Let's take this quick break. Take a look at the weather and traffic. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Jimmy Gathu live. This is a man's show where we talk about politics, men talk, sports, anything that spells man. Does your partner communicate in any way, be it financially, be it sexually, be it heart to heart? That's a communication that you will never hear in a marriage counseling session.
So the most important thing is just be honest with yourself.
Jimmy Gathu Live happens every Saturday from 2 to 7.
Only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is how we get down.
The rain is coming down in Nairobi, certain parts, 15 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 14. And 13 will be the low in a mostly cloudy Nakuru, highs of 25. 22 will be the high in a mostly sunny Nyeri at 14. It's cloudy in Eldoret at 12, highs of 24. And partly sunny conditions in Mombasa at 24. It's partly sunny at 25 in Malindi. 18 and partly sunny in Kisumu, and 15 and cloudy in Kakamega. The sun will shine partly this morning in Kampala, highs of 28 and lows of 15, and Dar es Salaam is sunny at 24, going to highs of 29 and lows of 21. It's 13 and cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 27. Lagos is cloudy at 25, and Kinshasa is clear at 23. On Uhuru Highways coming in through Aerodrome. Not too bad on the Thika Superhighway for the first time this week. It's slowing down as you get towards the Pangani Underpass. Kiambu Road, not yet. Folks, no, still to make their debut in terms of Friday traffic. Are you coming in from Cabanas, going towards Southfields and then out towards Airport Road? We'll see some traffic there. It's going to slow down just a tad. Traffic doesn't seem to be giving so heavy, at least not for now. Let's keep an eye on things and see how it opens up closer to 8 o'clock. Spice FM KE on X.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
The conversation.
Mornings done right.
Counseling psychologist. She's our guest this Health Friday. We're talking about mental health. Victoria, you talked about the conditions that you mostly diagnose at the facilities, and those you also mentioned ADHD in children. Explain that.
Thanks for that, Eric. So ADHD in children normally goes very much undiagnosed. It presents itself differently in the different genders. For the boys, they may be very hyperactive. You see these children who can't keep still. They're always fidgeting, they're always, climbing on the sofa, all over the place, right? But for us to make a diagnosis, there's a disclaimer there. The behavior must be out of the behavior which is normal within that age bracket. Because a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old can be told, keep still. Don't move, we're in church, keep still. But a child who has ADHD is not able to keep still. So in school, what happens? They're disruptive. They're the ones who will, throw those small papers onto the other children, distracting them, pinching the other children. But on the flip side, children who have ADHD are very, very brilliant children. So maybe they've already finished the assignment the teacher has given, and then they're wondering, why is everyone else taking so long? But what is the response of the teacher towards that? Is probably to tell that child, come and sit close to teacher. So that if you try to fidget or to bother the other children, the teacher will do what? Probably pinch them. But you cannot beat out ADHD out of a child. You must, as a parent or a teacher, know that this is a condition that they need to be helped with. For the girls, it presents itself differently. They're very inattentive. So they'll sit there looking like they're listening to the teacher, really looking like they're focusing, but their mind is very far away. So maybe you'll ask them a question, they'll be like, oh, sorry, what did you say? So you grow up with ADHD and the symptoms are not diagnosed. So later on in adulthood, it gives you problems. It causes you depression. It probably causes you alcoholism because you're trying to manage symptoms which you're not even aware of what they are. Most of these mental health illnesses are diagnosable from the age of 14. So if you're able to diagnose this child by that age or even earlier, then you're able to help them. If they need therapy, if they need medication, not always, then they're able to manage those symptoms. But if it is not diagnosed, then probably something else catches up with you now in adulthood and you're diagnosed with depression. But if you take a look back at history, it's actually ADHD which has not been caught up in adulthood, and the comorbidity could be depression, could be anxiety.
Okay.
Is it a mental health or is it a neurological disorder?
It's a mental health issue. ADHD is a mental health issue. Yeah.
Looking at depression, talking about then being one of the most prevalent ones.
What's that, depression?
Depression, as you said, in Kenya today. That would then lead to other things, alcoholism, suicidal thoughts, etc., etc.
Yes.
What, apart from the sleep, because you've mentioned the sleep, hypersomnia or insomnia, in a child, or maybe then getting into a teenager, into an adult, how do you, maybe as a parent or somebody who's living with them, know that something is wrong? For example, if I am sick, I have a headache, I have a fever, having trouble swallowing, I'll know there's something wrong. Those are the symptoms. I will go to the doctor. For mental health, what do you say, okay, here, we must go and get some kind of assessment. What would have been happening? What would we see that would say, okay, something is wrong here?
And is this about children or generally?
Generally.
Okay. Maybe if I spoke about children, for example, usually even for grown-ups, it's behavior change. That's the most telling factor that something here is not right. And for children, you could see that the child, maybe the performance has gone down. For example, in school, if this child was at a place where they're no longer wetting the bed, suddenly they're doing what? They're wetting the bed. They become very isolative, even for grown-ups. Someone who would, go with you to the cafeteria for lunch, someone who would join social gatherings within the work environment, suddenly they're no longer available. So anytime you call them, hey, let's go for this, they're like, I'm not available, I'll probably have something else. They always have an excuse. And then productivity also at the workplace. You're wondering, this person was a star performer, but of late, they're not meeting their obligations. So the most telling factor is change of behavior and even how they keep themselves. Maybe this person was very well kept, a very good haircut, very nice hairstyle. They really took care of themselves. But nowadays, you're looking at them and wondering what exactly is going on with this person. So change of behavior, how they present themselves, those will be pointers towards someone who is going through poor mental health. But remember, they can also be exposed to what we call chronic stress. So it's stress which they're living with every day before it gets to a place where now this is a mental illness. Because stress in itself does not cause a mental illness, but prolonged exposure to that stress is what will trigger a mental illness. So in that space is when probably you notice the behavior change. They're always absent from work. They always are on sick off. They send SMSs or WhatsApp saying, I'm not feeling too well today. I'll not be able to come to work. And there's something else we call presenteeism. They're also there in the work environment, but they're not there. They're physically, but mentally, they're very far away. So those would be some of the pointers of poor mental health, of challenges in mental health. Yeah.
And do they all have triggers? I mean, look, we watch movies and you'll see that somebody has gotten into some kind of funny behavior over time. Serial killers, rapists, people who they say are deviants at some point. And then they start to do some psychoanalysis on them and they will say that, there was a trigger somewhere in their life before. I'm just using that as an example. For anyone who may suffer depression, are there things that may have happened that then brings on this state?
Yes. And there's also, number one, there's the issue of genetics. If you have a parent who has depression, then you have a higher likelihood of also getting depressed. Now, we call it a predisposition. Not to say that you must get depressed simply because your mother was depressed. But we are saying if you're not able to manage the stressors around your environment, then you, who has a parent with a history of depression, have a higher likelihood of also getting depressed as opposed to someone who has got no history of depression in the family history. Now, there's the issue of genetics. There's also the issue of environment. if you go through something, for example, loss and grief, it could be loss and grief of someone that you love. It could be you lose a good job and you're not able to manage, then that could trigger, whether you have it genetically or you do not have it genetically. Then there's what we call things like adverse childhood experiences. Growing up, maybe you're sexually abused, maybe you're emotionally abused, your parents were not there, maybe they were also alcoholics, right? So you kind of parented yourself. So if you're not able to process all that, then growing up you may have what we call now post-traumatic stress disorder. And of course there's that element of depression. So also your lifestyle, are you someone who sleeps well? Are you someone who does physical exercises? Are you someone who has a good diet? Because all that now point us towards good mental health. So you may have a mental health issue potentially, but it is triggered by the environment.
Something else.
Yes.
Many of the examples you've given are where people around you notice something untoward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible for one to actually tell that I'm getting a mental illness? And does it happen often that someone feels the way I am now, the way I'm behaving, I'm sleeping a bit too much, there's a mental illness, I'm not sleeping much, whatever kind of things, whatever they're going through, is it possible for one to tell? The same way someone can tell, nasikia malaria. And someone says, nasikia mental. In
fact, these days they say, nasikia amoeba.
That is very possible, yeah? But you can only tell that I'm feeling off if you know the symptoms of poor mental health, right? Because if I didn't know the symptoms of a fever, I would be wondering what's going on with me. I can feel that there's something wrong, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. So it is possible to feel that my sleep patterns have really changed, or why am I not feeling motivated towards going to work, right? Or why am I eating so much? Because sometimes when you're stressed, you'll find yourself eating a lot, and then people will tell you you're doing very well because you've added weight, and you're actually stressed, maybe moving on towards depression. So yes.
But let me ask this question. Are all stresses or stresses necessarily negative?
No, there's positive stress. Yeah, there is actually positive stress because an element of stress will also help you. For example, if you're working on a project and you have these deadlines that you need to meet, so it motivates you. So there is positive stress. Yes.
See, if I look at the information that we now have in the 21st century, I guess that's why it's called the information age. There's a lot of it. There's Dr. Google, there's Dr. other search engines, and they give you a lot of information. Now, just the process of processing these things and trying to figure out where you fit in to this knowledge that you acquire or you've read about, and then trying to simply actualize it into your everyday life. Would you say that in itself, among the generation that consumes this sort of information in huge chunks, that it would also lead to what we're now referring to as stress
and anxiety?
Yes.
Don't go to Dr. Google. Yeah, because you may try Googling some of the symptoms that you're experiencing.
Yes.
It gives you a whole lot of other things. So that heightens your anxiety. It heightens your anxiety. So if you feel the symptoms coming in, like your sleep pattern has changed, your appetite has changed, I want you to look at these, right? Maybe you can pass on to Erica. So with this little bookmark, you're able to actually do what we call a self-assessment.
Okay.
So if you look at it, there's a QR code here. So you just scan it the way you normally scan menus in restaurants, and it will generate for you the questionnaires. So with this little bookmark and the QR code, you can actually assess yourself for depression, you can assess yourself for anxiety, you can assess yourself for burnout, alcoholism, and also suicide, if you're feeling suicidal, right? So what do you do once you open up this QR code? You look for the assessment that you want to do, for example, depression. So it will take you through a number of questions. How is your sleep patterns? How is your appetite? Then it gives you a score. So it may tell you that for you, these are just normal life issues, so you'll be able to manage. But it may also give you a score that frightens you, and it shows you your score is probably 20 or 30, and that's leading towards now major depressive disorder. Then it tells you that how you can be helped is by leaving your phone number. Then a psychologist will call you back and give you the help that you need. But why are you even using this? It's because you've realized that there's something off with me, that I'm no longer sleeping well,
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little bit off, I have no motivation to go to work. So we have those screening tools which you can actually use. They are not diagnostic. It's simply like that you can take the your test for blood pressure, but what do you normally do with it? You take it and decide, it's okay, it will pass. Maybe I was just a little bit unhappy or whatever. But sometimes you take the measurements and you're like, I need to actually see a doctor. And this is urgent. So it's the same thing with this when it comes to your mental health. Yeah.
How are we dealing with the treatment of mental health in Kenya today? Because as we started this off, remember that it was declared a national emergency of proportions that clearly are unable to control. I guess that because of the assessment that was done around the country, that is why you arrived at that. What is being done to handle this? I mean, beyond this, if I'm not able to get this from you, if I'm not able to scan the code, and I may be feeling pressure here and there. Truth be told, that most times people who feel that pressure don't even think. The first thing that comes to your head is not a mental health problem. The first thing that comes to your head is, well, okay, if I had a little bit more money, I'll be able to sort out this issue with my kids. Or if I got rid of this husband, then okay, I'll be fine. But you're not really thinking, perhaps I need to sit down and talk with somebody. It's the last thing on a lot of people's minds. So how would it happen? I often think about friends I have in the US who say, oh, you know what, I have to go to work, I have errands to run, I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm going to see my therapist. It's very normal to go have a chat with somebody about something that could be pressuring you. But how do we deal with it, or how are we approaching this here?
We are running a lot of programs, at Chiromo Hospital, trying to create awareness about mental health issues. So what are we doing? We go to corporate organizations, we go to churches, we go to schools, basically anywhere where we are called or where we see there's a need and we're able to reach out, we go and talk to them about mental health issues. Because for you to even know what the problems are, someone has to tell you, yeah? So we'll go and talk about what are the symptoms, what are the illnesses, how do you even get a mental health problem? Because people are very blank when it comes to mental health illnesses, and they think it can't happen to me. It's usually the other person. So when you see someone out on the street, running around naked, that is the person who has poor mental health. But we say that it's 1 in every 4. And we say the definition does not necessarily equal to you running out there, naked and collecting papers. So we're trying to create that awareness by going to corporates and wherever to create the awareness and let people know that mental health issues are with us. It could be you, it could be your neighbor, it could be your friend. So creating that awareness is very important, right? Then we are also encouraging people to normalize the conversation around mental health. The same way that you'd come and talk about your gyna, about your dentist, is the same way people talk about their psychiatrists, they are psychologists. And it's a good thing that most insurance companies are also covering the issues of mental health. So you can actually come to a facility and do your outpatient. You can also do your inpatient, you can get inpatient services from a mental health facility. So they are also covered. And basically just trying to tell people, stop stigmatizing people who are experiencing mental health. They are normal people who are suffering from malaria, but a different kind of malaria. There's no you're going to ask someone who has cancer, why are you having cancer? Why are you having those symptoms of malaria? Because it's an illness like any other. So we are telling people, normalize those conversations even at family level, at the office level. Stop using derogatory words like I'm a cheesy, they've run mad, they're psycho, And even when they are diagnosed and they're on medication and they come back to the office, treat them as normal as the next person. Don't give them lighter duties, don't take them off projects, unless of course they're not maintaining their treatment. Because there is treatment for most of these disorders. Some of them are not curable, so you may have to take medication for life, but most of them are manageable. So you can take some medication, like for depression, for example, and you can also do therapy. And then we also encourage lifestyle. There's a lot of things that you need to do in terms of your physical wellness, financial wellness, spiritual wellness. And spiritual wellness is not just about going to church, but most of us experience spiritual wellness in church or in the mosque. But take care of yourself holistically in those dimensions. So if you're not doing too well financially, it could lead you to a place where you become depressed. So what do? You sit with a financial consultant who is able to help you manage your money or your investments. If it's about not being able to process your emotions, you're always projecting on others, then see a therapist or try and journal, because some of us, when we journal, we're able to make sense of what is going on around us. And things like social wellness also. How many of us have 2 good friends we can run to in a time of crisis? So social capital is also important because it has a bearing on your mental health. So those are the things that we are trying to uplift and tell people, hey, there is promotive, preventive, and protective factors that we're using or strategies towards maintaining sound mental health. Yeah.
Usually, I mean, sometimes, and you say this, and even to be sensitive to those around us, usually, I mean, a lot of us have dealt with people or deal with people who have a mental health situation. And the first thing would be to say, okay, come on, just snap out of it. What is it? You know, how terrible or derogatory is that a thing to tell somebody? Because we often think that they are cognizant of what they are going through, and then that makes us want to tell this person, come on, just, I mean, snap out of it. Why is that not a way to go?
Because they can't snap out of it. You know, snap out of malaria. You cannot snap out of it. There's a method to it. But it comes from our own place of being uninformed, which is why you'll tell someone, why are you depressed? You have a good job, you have a good family, you know, and things are working out for you in life. But remember, depression is an illness, you know, because it means that there's an imbalance with your hormones. So it's not about what is happening in terms of having a good husband or having a good family. It's about what is happening in your mind, right? So when you tell them snap out of it, they feel not listened to. So the best thing that you can do to someone who is experiencing a mental health issue is to give them empathy, you know, try and step in their shoes, you know, walk a mile and see from their worldview. That way you'll be able to see that this is an illness like any other, and then encourage them towards getting the relevant treatment, especially if they are reluctant to get treatment. Because again, one wants to say, I feel so depressed, I must see a psychiatrist. We have not yet gotten there. But if you're able to tell them that you need help, you know, see a psychiatrist, see a psychologist, that is the best thing that you can do for them, instead of telling them to snap out of it, because it is an illness.
How do you actually advise somebody? I mean, because you sort of feel like they're telling you they're not looking for a solution, and you're not an expert in solutions. So you're listening to somebody and they're voicing what they're feeling, what their anxieties are, what they're going through. You can't really put yourself in their shoes all the time, can you? So what do you do in such instances?
If, for example,
do you call a doctor for them? Do you tell them, let's go to hospital? What do you do?
The best thing that you can do is to point them to a professional. And sometimes they may be reluctant because they may say, I'm not that badly off. I don't really need a psychologist. I don't need a psychiatrist. But for them to know that there's someone who is supporting them, who is giving them a push in the right direction, means a lot. For the people who have attempted suicide, most of them say that I tried talking to my friends or my family, but they didn't really seem to get me. No one pointed me towards some professional help. But what do they want? Sometimes they even want someone to accompany them to that psychologist, that psychiatrist, just for them to know that there's someone who's really standing with you in these. So it's about pointing them towards the right help, and even telling them that it's okay, I will be there for you. If you need to call me, if you need to talk, I will be there to support you. But do tough love, you know, in a way that you push them to get the right kind of help. Because if they keep on talking about it, and they're not doing anything about it, then it's not very helpful.
It's not helping.
Yes.
If you notice somebody's behavior started going off, how do you approach them? How do you raise it with them?
It depends on your relationship. Because you may notice someone's behavior has gone off and it's in the work environment and you're not close to them, so you may not be able to approach them. We encourage people within the workplace to have what we call mental health champions, people who champion mental health. So probably you could reach out to those ones, to reach out to the people who look like they're having issues in terms of their mental health. We also have what we call employee assistance programs, which is something that is started by the employer to help employees who are struggling with issues which are impacting on their productivity at the workplace. So once you have someone within the employee assistance program, then they're the right people to tell that, hey, I think Victoria is struggling with some mental health issues. Is there you can reach out to her? Because you as a workmate, as a colleague, may not be able to reach out to them. But when it comes to family, especially if someone is psychotic, or maybe they've become alcoholic and it's really, really impacting on their health, then you're allowed to bring them to the facility actually involuntarily and sign them in for them to get the help that they need. Yeah.
How do you think we can overcome this monster? I think about mainstreaming these conversations and making it normal, the way we've not, because we keep saying that it's an illness, something that we've not been able to understand as an illness, probably until now, most recent conversations. So do you think mainstreaming mental health conversations, the way we've mainstreamed HIV, the way we've mainstreamed cancer, the way we've talked about all these other conditions, if we mainstream mental health, would it be a little bit more easier to deal with and then get the needed help for those who have the conditions?
Absolutely, it will be, especially you who are in this space of the media. That would really, really help. See, right now there's no one there's very little stigma when it comes to HIV right now because of all the publicity that it got. If we could do the same for mental health, then people would have normal conversations around mental health within even the workspace, within the family, within society. So mainstreaming it would be a really good thing that would propel it to a place where people now come to accept it as something that you are living it with, something that you can experience, and something that is manageable.
Okay, now if you look at poverty as a contributor to mental health, and you have a situation where not only are the numbers of those who fall below this mythical poverty line is increasing, but the narrative around poverty is dominant and it continues. Now, it wouldn't matter if there was nothing to compare it with. So we have the discussion of poverty on one end of the spectrum, and then you have the super wealthy and those who conspicuously consume their wealth for everybody to see and put it in social media. Now, how then do you help a person who finds themselves in circumstances which at best are described as depressing circumstances? Because you're poor and you're in this vortex of poverty, and there seems to be no end to it, and the likelihood of moving out of it is zero. And then the numbers of those who fall into that category also keeps increasing, meaning it's like a death trap. Nothing is moving.
I think that's a very tricky question, because even the Bible says that you'll always have the poor with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Bible does that to tell you that you have work to do.
Yes.
Yes. Not that accept that they are poor and you say, guys, just be happy in your poverty.
Yeah,
it's
I
okay.
know.
Yes.
I know, but I think for both categories, whether you're super rich, whether you're poor, mental health issues, go across, they cut across. They may be different in terms of intensity, or in terms of, if I am poor and I have a mental health, I may not get access to insurance. If I am super wealthy, I have access to insurance. But self-awareness is key. So if I am poor, then I know my limitations. But if I have some social capital and I have depression, you will see the poor people have a more cohesive relationship with their neighbors, with their counterparts, as opposed to the super rich. Am I right? Yeah? So probably that is something that can help. That's self-awareness. That, yes, I may... yes.
I brought in the element of comparison. If we're all poor, then we're all poor.
We're okay.
And we'll be happy in our poverty. But when I can see others, more so if I know people who are like me once and they are no longer poor, it heightens my levels of anxiety, because then I look at myself rather disparagingly. And I wonder what it is that I should have done and could have done and might not have done.
Where have I failed?
Exactly. Rural communities, you'd be right, because that sense of community, yes, it makes for the well-being, the mental well-being that people have, because at the back of your mind, you know that when you have a problem, you're not alone. You know, not only can you go to someone, but you will receive help. But when you know it isn't forthcoming or it's unlikely, then all you see is a wall. You see, there are those who look at such matters and they say some of the countries that have some of the highest indicators of depression are countries that have conflict. They talk of Afghanistan, the Middle East, and so forth. And then they look at the causes and the indicators, either societally driven or substance abuse driven, whatever it is. And then they look at a country like Japan with the lowest, they say, 2.5%. And you ask, what is it about Japan? Again, the sense of community. And the community not just within the small enclaves of community, but the nation as a community, and how it is they apply themselves to it. So you have to ask, what is it beyond this? And then there's a sense of equity. You find the responsibility that those in authority have towards the citizenry. Now, here, and in the third world countries, we've been discussing these schools in West Africa. A wealthy country, and yet people are extremely poor. What reason do they have for not being depressed?
I hear you. And I think it takes me back to self-awareness, right? Because if I know my ability, I know my capacity, there'll always be someone who is better than you at the end of the day, yeah? There'll always be someone who's doing better than you. So if I am aware about that fact and I know my limitations and my abilities and I'm able to be happy in that, then I'll be happy in my poverty. I think so.
Actually, I would use the word content.
I would be content, exactly. Yes, that is the word. Yes, I would be actually content. But I need self-awareness now for that, isn't it?
Contentment doesn't mean I'm not trying, but I'm able to come to terms and say, I'm okay here, but I'll keep trying.
Yeah,
Exactly, I'll keep trying. Yes. I'll keep trying, because if I keep comparing myself with others, it also lowers my self-esteem, right? Which of course now leads me to a place where I have chronic stress, because there'll always be someone who's out there doing better than you, and that now leads to depression, to other mental health illnesses. Yeah.
How do people reach out to you, for example, to get this?
Now, you can come to the facility, or if someone has a need and they want us to go and talk to them at the corporate level or church level, they can always reach out to us. We have a toll-free number down there. It's 0800-220-000. They can always reach out to us. We are also on the website, so they can just Google Chiromo Hospital Group and they'll be able to talk to us.
Okay.
Now, this talk, is it free?
Yes, it is.
Ah, good.
Yes, it is.
Very good.
It is not free. It is Chiromo sponsored.
Yes.
Sponsored by Chiromo
Victoria,
Hospital
thank you
Group.
very much for joining us. Victoria Rika is a clinical and counseling psychologist. She's been our guest this Health Friday to talk about mental health and the importance of speaking up. Speak up, reach out to one another, because we all need to do that. It's 8 a.m. Good morning. Keep it here for more.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Kenya Defence Forces recruitment exercise that comes to an end today has seen hundreds of youth turn up for the activity that has been carried out across the country since last week Monday. The exercise has, however, ended on a sad note for two families who lost their loved ones. In Kilifi County, an aspiring soldier who collapsed during Tuesday's recruitment died at the county hospital while in ICU. Harrison Karisa's relatives say he did not have any known health issues, but an autopsy will be conducted to ascertain the cause of death. This event comes as another family in Kirinyaga is mourning the death of their son Francis Wachira. Wachira also died earlier this week after he collapsed at Kianyaga Stadium immediately after finishing the final lap while entering the gate. KDF is seeking to recruit candidates to fill slots in the Defence Forces, constables, recruits and officer cadets. Taxpayers will today know whether the Finance Act will once again be suspended pending the hearing and determination of a case filed by Busia Senator Okoh Mtata. The Supreme Court will deliver a ruling regarding an application seeking to set aside orders that reinstated the Finance Act 2023. In July, the Court of Appeal lifted an order blocking the implementation of the law, while among other things doubled the VAT on petroleum products to 16% and introduced a housing levy of 1.5%. The law also hiked income tax for top earners, with those with a gross salary of above 500,000 Kenya shillings slashed 32.5%, while those with 800,000 Kenya shillings and above cut 35% from a standard rate of 30%. Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria says that the launch of an industrial park across counties will better the economy as well as prevent importation of various products from foreign nations. Speaking in Trans Nzoia County, Kuria said the government has allocated 2 billion shillings to buy dryers to save farmers from losses caused by rotting as well as aflatoxin poisoning.
Kimaliza huu mradi hakuna mtu ambaye ataweza kuleta unga kutoka nje. Wakulima wa Trans Nzoia, wana biashara wa Trans Nzoia, hiyo kazi watafanya hapa hao wenyewe. Rais akatuamurisha tuweke bilioni 2 ya kununua dryers kwa muda wa mwezi mmoja, zitakuwa zimefika hapa ndio hii mahindi yetu isipotelee kwa shamba. Tunaleta machines za pasteurizers ya maziwa inapakiwa hapa. Mimi kazi yangu sasa natembea ni kutembea huko nje. Tulete wawekezaji.
County Governor George Natembea has said that the launch will help in creation of job opportunities as well as promote development projects in the region.
Tukizindua hii mradi, kazi ya ujenzi inaanza mara moja. Hakutakuwa na challenges zozote za fedha, maana fedha tayari tumesecure. Hii mahali kuna mambo mazuri ambayo yatakuja. Unaona kuna line moja tu ya stima, lakini watu wa sehemu hii ya Kabomboi pia mtapata stima, wala ambao wana maji mtapata maji, wala ambao wana barabara. Nimesikia Mheshimiwa Kefa Wera akilia hapa, hata hii barabara ya Kapsitwe itatengenezwa.
At the same time, Kiminini MP Didmus Baraza and Senator Alan Chesang have asked the government to announce a new maize price for the farmers.
Tunataka mahindi ambayo wananchi wa Trans Nzoia na wa Bungoma wamevuna mwaka huu, hiyo mahindi inunuliwe kwa bei nafuu, isinunuliwe kwa bei ambayo ni ya hasara, ndio mkulima apate jasho yake arudi nayo. Mimi nawashukuru watu ya Trans Nzoia, wale walikuwa wanafanya maandamano hawakuwa wengi, walikuwa wachache, wengi walikuwa wanaandamana kwa shamba wakipanda ile mahindi.
Waziri, hawa wakulima wako na shida moja tu, baada ya kuvuna mahindi yao, unaona ni mahali hapa kunanyesha sana. Tukimaliza hii industrial park, mimi naomba waziri tafadhali tuanze project nyingine ya kuleta hata dryer ya kukausha mahindi ya hawa wananchi.
And in the international scene, 7 competitors lying down on mats are vying for the coveted title of laziest citizen after smashing the previous record in a satirical contest held annually in a holiday resort in northern Montenegro. A lying down record of 117 hours was set at last year's contest in the resort village of Ednah. But as this year's competition entered the 20th day, the remaining contestants said they were determined to keep going. Now, the remaining laziest citizens are now 7, and they started off as 21 and have so far been lying down for 463 hours. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right. Still a little bit of traffic on Langata Road. It's not too bad as you come beyond what was that T-Mall junction previously, and we'll see some of that then spill over to Uhuru Highway. As you get out into the CBD and then through to Westlands, that's going to continue for some time. We're looking at traffic coming off of Thika Superhighway. Not too bad right about now. Pangani is where we'll see the pack up going towards Muranga Road or then towards Wangari Maathai. Let's look on the other side of the city where we have a little bit of it building up right around the Eastern Bypass. But apart from that, we're not going to see too much suffering from traffic this morning. We'll take a look outside of Nairobi in a bit and see what that's panning out to be. In the meantime, talk to us about what may pop up in your neck of the woods. Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning and welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room. Happy Friday wherever you're joining us from, and thank you very much for choosing The Situation Room as the way to start your day. We're on Spice FM, on KTN Home, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And on the 29th of October, we shall be running along the Southern Bypass from Uhuru Gardens.
Indeed. It's the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, and this year it is bigger. It's commemorating 20 years of having been running, and we're saying this year, let's do it again. 2,000 shillings is what you need to register at www.nairobimarathon.com. All proceeds go towards the Future Makers program. It helps young people, especially girls and people with disability, to learn, earn, and grow. So do that this year. Let's get on to it. The Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon happening on the 29th of October.
Kabisa. Professor PLO Lumumba, as we said earlier, is the man who convened the Bomas talks in 2003 as the secretary of the then Yash Palgai Constitution of Kenya Review Commission. He has seen this journey towards a new constitution for many years, as he has served as chairman of LSK. He has not chairman of LSK. He has served as editor of the Lawyers magazine. He has been a very senior lawyer in the country. With the Constitution now celebrating 13 years, on the day of marking 13 years of the promulgation of the Constitution, Professor PLO Lumumba, among others, called a media conference and said, let's amend this thing. And he had ideas on what needs to be amended. We've invited him to the Situation Room this morning to tell us more about this proposal to amend the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Professor, karibu to the...
Asante sana.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Welcome to the hot seat again.
Thank you.
City has the day's proverb, and this week's proverbs are from the Republic of...
Gabonese Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, otherwise known to the rest of us as Gabon.
Gabon. Sawa.
Yeah, this is the final proverb from that country, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The feathers of a dead eagle will not cover you all over.
The feathers of a dead eagle will not cover you all over.
Yes.
Prof, what do you make of it?
It is logical. When the eagle is dead, the feathers begin to come out, and therefore they cannot cover you.
Why? Because they are not on the animal.
They are not on the animal.
What if you collect
the
them?
life that makes the feathers hang on is no longer in the animal.
Mm-hmm. the eagle no longer has its feathers.
Absolutely, no longer has life, and life is the elixir of all things that cover any animal.
Right. So what's the deeper meaning?
The deeper meaning is that you should not rely on something which has no value and no power and no effect.
Rely only on the living.
Rely on that which has living.
All right.
Okay. A nice one.
Thank you.
Nice one. So, Prof, take us back to this day, the 27th of August, 2023. When you look back at 10 years of the Constitution and you're like, let's make this announcement to the people that will be seeking their support in amending the Constitution.
Let us remind ourselves that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is the product of a long journey. We started with the CKRC draft. The CKRC draft became the Boma's draft. The Boma's draft became the Wako draft, which was drafted or redrafted in Kilifi, which was rejected at the referendum in 2005. We then had the post-election violence in 2007, 2008, and one of the issues that was recommended by the Kofi Annan initiative was to have a new constitutional dispensation, and we had the 2010 constitution. And I can still remember the words of the politicians and some of us at that time, that this constitution that we are adopting needs amendment, even now. But we need to pass it so that we have something to begin working on. And what was the reason why we needed a new constitutional dispensation? To cure bad manners in our politics was one of them. We thought, among other things, that we would have an executive arm of government whose architecture would immunize the country from ethnic violence and ethnic mobilization. We thought that we would have a chapter that would enhance ethical conduct and therefore introduce hygiene in our politics. We thought we would have an independent judiciary, a legislature that would deliver, and we thought that we would have men and women included in the political arena in a manner that was equitable. Several years down the line, the appetite for amending the Constitution for short-term interests has been manifested on a number of occasions. It started with Okoh movement, and then segued, as it were, into Punguza Mizigo, which I thought was much more long-term in its intention, then of course segued again into the BBI. And what one sees in all these efforts, except the Punguza Mizigo, is an attempt by the political class to amend the constitution to achieve short-term political interests. And the rest of the Kenyans are left complaining and grumbling. And that is why we said on the 27th, we are no longer going to agonize, we are going to organize. And we do not claim to hold the monopoly of knowledge or wisdom. We are going to draft a bill that addresses some of the things that we think need attention and come to the people to seek their support. And what gives me the strength? I interact with the Constitution very intimately. And I can say that the book that I and Louis Franceschi have written, a commentary on the Kenyan Constitution 2010, is the most authoritative book on the subject. Speaks to every article of the Constitution. So as a student of Constitution, I have both the intellectual wherewithal and firepower to comment on the Constitution in an intimate manner. And my intention, therefore, and others whom we are working with, is to come to the people and ask them, these are the areas that we think need to be relooked at. Look at the executive. We now have officers in the Kenyan administration which have no constitutional basis.
Like which?
Prime cabinet secretary. It has no constitutional basis. Everybody knows that. But we are doing that because we are so highly ethnicized that we think that when you appoint an individual from a particular ethnic group and you give him that title, then the feel-good effect is good for that community. Look at the many commissions that we have. Most of them, you and me don't know what they do, yet they are gobblers of funds in an economy that is suffering. Look at the SRC, the body that we created to deal with salaries. It is no longer independent. It is wagged by the politicians and it does their bidding. Look at the offices that we split, such as the office of the Auditor General and the Budget Controller. Should they be merged? So these are the legislature. Look at the number of legislators we have. Do they serve us? We have seen in times of need, the legislators prefer to talk at funerals and at weddings and at public rallies rather than to legislate. Look at Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We know individuals who have alleged to have committed murder, who are involved in graft, and they are ruling the roost, as it were. So while I agree with my good friend Muhisa Kitui when he said that bad manners cannot be cured by constitutional amendments, I believe that the time is now to ask ourselves, what can we do to clean up the mess? And the one thing that I did not talk about is devolution. You cannot quarrel with devolution. But the reality, as I speak to you, all counties in Kenya are technically insolvent. Why? We have too many of them. We have 47 units and 47 governors who believe they are heads of states, of little states. Even if you look at the United States of America, which has an economy which is 21 trillion, it has only 50 states. Look at China with a 14 trillion economy, only 30 provinces. Look at Nigeria with a GDP of 500 billion and a population of 250 million. How many states does it have? 37. Look at India, 26. How did we possibly arrive at 47 and we still have appetite for more?
We want to create more.
So we must be bold enough. We must be bold enough to come to the people and say, this is what is on the table. It may not be palatable, but let us examine it.
And look at it. Why now, Prof?
Because
why on the 13th year? Why not on the 12th or 11th or the 10th year?
That was serendipitous. It is not as if we planned it, but I think it turned out, in fact, to my surprise, that was the birthday of the Constitution in terms of promulgation. But there is a constitutional moment. There is a constitutional moment because immediately after the 2022 elections, once again we found ourselves in an environment where the losers of the election, having exhausted the prescribed avenues, have chosen to act extra-constitutionally, with the consequence that the country was once again on tenterhooks. And as you know now, we have a process that is going on in terms of negotiation amongst the political contestants. And one can see, even if one is not a Jewish prophet, that one of the things that is going to emerge out of that process is a recommendation for constitutional amendment to resolve short-term political interests. You wait.
Prof, can I ask you
Yes.
on that? Because there will be the rebuttal to this, that would we then go towards constitutional amendment anytime there is a for lack of a better word, mess in governance,
a political fallout,
in politics, or when we look at, for example, the insolvency that you talk about at the county level, that should there be a futuristic problem, that the answer to that would be a constitutional amendment. And they would say, how many times will we amend to solve a problem that is created by individuals?
Let me contextualize my answer in history. The history of the Kenyan Constitution has been the unfortunate history of amendments to resolve short-term political interest. My good friend Professor Githu Muigai has written a very good PhD thesis on this subject, on the amendment of the Kenyan Constitution. And we started amending our independence constitution, perhaps for good reason, in 1964. And we ended up amending this constitution almost 27 times before we went into the process of giving ourselves a new constitution. Is it a good idea to always amend the constitution? Bad idea. It is a bad idea, but these young countries, which we call young democracies, are experimenting with constitutional dispensations which many times are even alien to our circumstances. And after 10 years, knowing as I do that amending the constitution to address short-term political interest is not a good thing, I think there is merit in examining this constitution in the hope that after we have amended it carefully, it will take us a longer period to do so. If you look at older constitutions, say the Constitution of the United States of America, last amended, I think, in 1971, and not amended more than 21 times, and this is a constitution that is over 200 years old. The reality is that many of these things can be done through legislation. But we have, as a country, entered into the arena in which I call fixation with the Constitution. Things that ought not to be in the Constitution are found in the Constitution.
Like what, for instance?
You find, for example, provisions relating to political parties. These are things that if you look at other constitutions in the so-called older democracy would not be there. Issues to deal with ethics, how we conduct ourselves. There are things that ought not to be in the Constitution. We have so much detail in our Constitution, and I can tell you why. The typical post-colonial African state is an artificial state. You have in a country like Kenya over 56 ethnicities, and in order to balance the interests which are undercurrent, sometimes you put in your typical constitution things that traditionally ought not to be in the constitution. And that is why we find ourselves going on to amend the constitution. I can give you many constitutions which are older than ours. Look at the Swiss constitution. It's a third of our constitution in size. Look at the American Constitution. It's perhaps almost 10% in size of our constitution. Look at the Indian Constitution, and many of them. But typically, African constitutions tend to be very long in order to accommodate all these interests. And the prototypical constitution in that regard is the South African Constitution of 1994 and during that period. Look at the Ugandan Constitution of 1995, the Ethiopian Constitution. All these tend to belong, and we constitutionalize these things because our politics and governance is characterized by ethnic suspicion.
How is this a bad thing?
It is not neither bad nor good, because every country must, in the nature of things, do things that address their own specific situation. But as my teacher Okoh Gendo said many years ago, in 1972 to be exact, a constitution without constitutionalism means very little.
Explain that, please.
I can explain. You can have a good constitution, but if you don't practice what it prescribes, then it is useless. It can have beautiful words. And Yash Gai said it when we were making the constitution, that Africa is a graveyard of beautifully written constitutions which are honored in breach. Look at our own constitution. Look at them. Look at chapter 6, and I want you, without naming names, the individuals who are now in parliament, they could some of them could quite a good number of them should be in jail. Fact. Yes. But every time they tell us what to do, they tell us how to behave ethically. Are we giving meaning to chapter 6 of the Constitution? No. If you look at the Salaries Review Commission, they recommend to us what it is that should be paid to public servants. Do our members of parliament respect all those? No.
But Prof, don't you think that the very example you've given is probably what lends credence to the effectiveness of the Constitution in this sense? If people preach water and drink wine, which is in essence what our elected leaders tend to do when it comes to matters of morality, does it then not shine a very, very bright light as to the reality of what our morality is?
I hear you. We cannot, in the nature of things, surrender to a situation where we say that we normalize the absurd.
No, not normalize.
Yes, we should not do that.
Acknowledge it for what it is.
We acknowledge but don't normalize.
Yes.
And that is why we try to ensure that through a constitutional dispensation, we revolutionize what is undesirable. We have a country today where our creed is greed. Our creed is to do the right things. We have political bad manners, as I've said before. And we have had countries in this situation. Singapore, which we keep on talking about, was in this very situation until the administration of Lee Kuan Yew in the 1960s caused people to move in the right direction. 140 government officials arrested in a single day. Singapore has never been the same again. Paul Kagame in Rwanda, post-genocide, through a new constitutional dispensation, did this. In other words, if you have a good constitution and you have political leadership that is committed to ensuring that things ought to run in a proper way, then a good constitutional dispensation forms a foundation. As it is today, we have within the political class individuals who think they are bigger than the Constitution, who think that they can operate outside of the Constitution. And the time is now to rein them in and to have the courage to tell them, no matter how big you are no bigger than the law.
Our Constitution. I thought that's what we did in 2010.
Oh, so I
We
thought.
created institutions. We, in fact, said, let's remove focus on individuals and have institutions. We created institutions and gave them sufficient constitutional power and mandate to rein in these bad manners. Now, why don't we make those ones work? Why are we going back and saying these ones are not working? Because the politicians are winning the game. Now we want to play the game of the politicians?
It must not be understood in that way. And sometimes I tell my fellow Africans, we judge ourselves too harshly. These nations that we are running are very young nations. Kenya is slightly over 61 years since it regained our independence. If you look at the history of nations, they have gone through this phase. Look at the whole of Europe when they were absolute monarchs, when they killed their monarchs from Sweden to Russia in 1917. They had politicians or monarchs who behaved as demigods. Look at even a country that is running roughshod over Africa, France, until 1958 was in the same situation. Look at Italy until 1900 and after 1945. Look at Spain until very recently. Look at Portugal during 1975. Antonio Di Spinola and Marcelo Caetano. You can go on and on. Look at Latin America. So the truth is that politicians in many parts of the world will always try to test the resolve of the people by running and operating outside of the Constitution. What we must do is to have the moral courage to deal with them. Look at what has happened to the former Brazilian president Bolsonaro. He tried to go outside of the Constitution and he is facing it. Look at Donald Trump in the United States of America. What he tried to run out of the Constitution is facing indictments. Here, when people misbehave, their tribe tells you, you try and arrest him and you'll see. This is the problem.
And that's why I'm saying, Prof, we created institutions so we can rein in the politicians.
Yes.
Now, 13 years down the road, it sounds like we are exacerbated and we are basically giving up and saying, so let's amend the Constitution so we can accommodate these political bad manners.
Sometimes
we can create this position of Prime Cabinet Secretary to accommodate the political bad manners. So we can create these positions to accommodate bad manners.
I had hoped that this administration would be bolder in this regard, because you need courage.
But
you need courage to do the right thing. You can be bold and you are doing the wrong thing. You can be bold and you are creating sinecure offices. Look at the offices called CAS. One of the things that we were doing during Bomas was say, we don't need assistant ministers by any name called. They have been reintroduced. We said we have adopted a presidential system which does not have space for a prime minister. It is presidential. This is what we accepted, although at Bomas we recommended a totally different system. We had recommended to have a president, a vice president, a prime minister, and a deputy prime minister. Does not look sensible, but we said the reality of our country requires some of these officers in order to accommodate these interests. So we are saying this is the time. We live in a country where we pretend. We pretend, for example, that we have political parties. These are not political parties. These are ethnic outfits which are run at the behest and on the whims, on caprices of individuals. But yet in our constitution, we said we wanted to fund them. We wanted to make them institutional. But look at your typical Kenyan politician across the political divide. They are migratory. Most of them have belonged to one party, to more than 6 parties in the last 10 years. So I can hear what you are saying, but I'm saying, let us keep on trying this. Let us keep on trying this. It will not be easy. It will not be easy because the crop of politicians we have now are the very same thing, and I've been alive when they have been doing these things. Whenever we amend the constitutions and we create offices, they see themselves in those offices. You create presidency, say, hiyo ni kiti changu hicho. You create prime minister, say, that is my seat. Until the day that we have individuals who are capable of looking at the nation beyond themselves, then our constitution will not be respected. Part of the problem that we have is the current crop of politicians who are so short-term, so selfish, so unpatriotic, that they are a danger to this country. And until the day that they leave the scene, this country is always going to convulse. I look forward to the day
that they leave the scene.
That they leave the scene so that we have a new crop of people who think of the future of this nation rather than having their egos massaged.
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break. But, yeah.
You'll come back on that one.
With the definition.
Okay. 29 minutes to 9. Professor P.L.O. Lumumba is our guest this morning. He others are proposing amendments to the Constitution, and he has several areas that he has highlighted, talking about our executive structure, talking about the organization of our representation. How many constituencies should we have? How many counties should we have? How many constitutional commissions should we have? How are they functioning? How should we make them function better? That's it. Prof, unakunywa chai?
Nanywa kahawa.
Kahawa. Ya maziwa?
Ya maziwa.
Bas, you know Dairy Best long life milk.
Here nani akina Brookside.
Yes. You know it. You clearly know it. So Dairy Best is long life, meaning nunua packet moja. You keep it for long. And then you're using it now in your coffee. Usiweke atile kidogo. Put milk, bana. This country.
A little taste of coffee in my milk.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Color your milk with coffee.
So whenever you're thinking tea, coffee, Kenyans, we must drink something. Whenever you're drinking it, think of Dairy Best long life milk. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yolanda Mulo and DJ Absolute. When the gang is together, you know it's
Sugar and spice.
Great vibes, conversations, a lot of humor. I like to say we don't give an F, we give 3 Fs.
You and I are in this relationship, so it is me to tell you who we are.
When you ask a chick, how many guys have you been with? She's like, including you. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what
degrees, cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 22, lows of 14, and we'll see lows of 12 in a mostly sunny Nakuru, going to highs of 26. 23 will will be the high and mostly sunny Nyeri at 15, and it's 16 and cloudy. In Eldoret, with highs of 25, we'll see lows of 12. It's sunny at 26. In Mombasa, highs of 30 as well, and a partly sunny Malindi at 27. It's partly sunny at 22 in Kisumu, highs of 30. 29 will be the high, and mostly cloudy Kakamega at 19. 19 and sunny as well in Kampala, and 25 and sunny in Dar es Salaam. It's 16 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly clear Lagos at 25. It's 23 and sunny in Kinshasa. It'll go to highs of 34, back down to lows of 23.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life.
Most of it in the middle belt of Nairobi. That's Uhuru Highway going out towards Westlands and through to the city centre. It hasn't been too bad on Mombasa Road, either on the thicker superhighway. Just at that Pangani underpass is where we'll see some movement. We have some outbound traffic in the westerly direction. It is the weekend after all, going out in the Limuru direction through towards Naivasha and Nakuru, eventually out towards Kisumu. We haven't seen or of anything. Let us know what might be happening where you are. No cause for alarm, I'm sure. We'll keep an eye on things. Let us know. Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Lumumba City.
You know, as the good professor was talking about them exiting, I wanted him to perhaps cautiously explain what he means. Because given the current narratives that we've heard about, vitu ni vitatu. Mambo ni matatu.
City, I hear you.
But that was on a light note. Morbid as it sounds, but it's on a light note. Everything that we're saying boils down to something fundamental which we keep discussing, and I can't see my way around it. The ability that we ought to have to hold our leaders to account. We seem unable to do so. In fact, when we refer to something as bad manners, I actually don't particularly like that term because it euphemizes something worse. Theft is theft. It can't be bad manners. Okay? When people are committing genocide by misappropriating and stealing money that is intended for health and for education, it's not bad manners. It's what it is. What needs to be done for the citizenry to understand that these problems that we talk about are within their capacity to actually manage and mitigate against? Because if they're able to hold the leaders to account, believe me, they'll behave.
No, City, I understand you and Eric and Ondo. The problem we have in Kenya, and this is true of many African countries, is our tolerance for bad things, for evil. And this sometimes is because of ethnic loyalty. So that if somebody is engaged in grand larceny and theft, we excuse them because they come from our ethnic group. And the politicians have mastered this art. One of the things that we thought could happen through civic awareness is that the people would be mobilized to be able to recognize evil things. But unfortunately, that is taking too long. And we must not tire. We must keep on speaking out. We must keep on reminding the people that an individual who steals as a governor, and therefore you have no roads, you have no schools, you have no medicine, it doesn't matter whether they come from your tribe or not, or from your party or not. They are thieves and ought to be dealt with as such. Easier said than done. I've had people, some of whom are intellectually very endowed, excuse things because an individual from their tribe is the one who is involved. So it takes time. It will take mental liberation. And I think that that is what we must keep working at, in the hope that sometimes people will begin to recognize that we suffer because of bad politicians. Once we do that, then we'll be able to use the vote, because the vote has become so useless in most of Africa that it cannot achieve the desired results. We go to elections whose results are predetermined and whose results are known, and we keep on putting into office individuals who ought not to be in office because they are capable of ensuring that they have sufficient ethnic mobilization, or they corrupt the electorate. I see politicians literally distributing money. Live on camera.
And people accept it.
And people accept, and they are not punished. In other parts of the world, when one engages in such conduct, by dint of what is the equivalent of our Chapter 6 of the Constitution, they would be forced to resign the next day. But here, they say, I will remain in office, and nothing happens to it. And we have very short memories. Including you, the media. You have very short memories. You don't ensure that these fellows are put on the spot. Several years ago, I told all media, the print media, you should reserve page 3 of your newspaper on a daily basis for naming and shaming. In the hope that when you keep on repeating it, then they will become, their conscience will prick them. That you who are here in an organization such as every morning, there should be a naming and shaming 30 minutes. I know there'll be laws of defamation and all, but you should be prepared to pay the price. It is only when you have such drastic things happening in your country that you can change the country. Otherwise, we'll keep on lamenting every other period. We'll watch the politicians engage in these talks, which are designed to achieve short-term political interests. And then
I'll
the
add something
country
to that.
continues to sink deeper and deeper into the mire of confusion.
And I feel, Prof, that we'll keep on making attempts at amending laws, creating laws and amending our constitution without results. Like your professor told you, Hastings, many years ago, constitution without constitutionalism. We as a people have not embraced constitutionalism. And that could be, I put it to you, that is a problem. That the document that we passed in 2010, much as it may have its flaws, to a greater extent, that document should be able to serve us and to address the ills that we are seeing today. But because we haven't internalized it, we passed Chapter 6, we haven't internalized it. It doesn't matter whether people have gone to court and the courts have said, all right, based on the Leadership and Integrity Act, this person can still end up in the ballot. But we, the people who are the ones who know the character of this individual, end up voting for the same individual with questionable character.
Eric, you know,
then it's us who are the problem.
The generation that came from Egypt has too much Egypt in them. So that even when you physically remove them out of Egypt, Egypt still resides in them. That is the reality. and if that is the reality, do we surrender? No. We keep on pushing. It is Fidel Castro during the revolution who said, we'll keep knocking at the door because you know when it will give. It is when you get tired that is about to give. And this is why these efforts must never die. But let us agree that throughout history, throughout the lives of nations, these attempts must always be made at all times. And it is true, there is not a single constitution that is perfect. It is the will of the people and the will of the leaders, enlightened leadership and enlightened followership that makes a country move in the right direction. I'm now very reluctant to use the word democracy because it has been bastardized. I prefer to use the word governance. I remember in 1992 at Safari Park, there was a meeting that was called an almost all Kenyan meeting. And Koigi Wawamwere was there. I think he will remember if he's listening to us. And I was there. We were young and exuberant. And I said, Simeon Nyachai was sharing the session. I said, we are so ethnic that we had better admit it and then deal with it, even if it is dealing with it within the Constitution. Because this pretense that we have political party A, B, C, D, and yet we know that these are ethnic outfits pretending to be political parties is only leading us in the wrong direction. If we admitted that we want to constitutionalize our ethnicity and to deal with it in order to solve the problem of governance, that would be a more honest situation. Is it done anywhere? Look at Switzerland. Yes.
I was about to give the example.
Yeah.
The cantons decided that, look, we know that this is a problem that we have, but we cannot continue getting into a position of conflict.
Yes.
So if you recognize the problem, how about we make it part of who we are and how we will be held accountable and how we will lead and deal? Acknowledging that issue, constitutionalizing it, doesn't necessarily take the problem away, but what it does, it gives you an avenue on how to deal with it.
I can't agree with you more. That is acknowledging it, then the work begins from there. As they say in Kiswahili, kuzaa si kazi. Kazi ni kulea. And so it is with the constitution. Having a new constitution in and of itself is the beginning of hard work, because there are people who will want to resist it.
Yeah.
They resist it simply because they don't like the person who started the movement. They resist it because it takes away their power. They resist it because it takes away their privileges. But what we want in a new constitutional dispensation is what is in the best interest of the general good. There will always be outliers. Even in heaven, Satan is an outlier.
Indeed he is.
In your proposal, you're proposing that we reduce the number of constituencies?
If I was asked, that is one of the things that should be proposed in my mind. But the bill that we are drafting is not only me who is doing so, but my own desire is that we should reconfigure the manner in which we represent ourselves. Look at Nairobi, for example. Nairobi should not, as we recommended at Bomas, be a county. Nairobi should be administered in the same way as Washington, D.C. is, or the same way that Abuja in Nigeria is. If you do so, Nairobi would not have the problem that it does, because this is the capital city. And look at the constituencies that we have with a population representation of 5,000. Of course, the other geographical realities must be put into account, and we must ask ourselves, how are we representing ourselves and who are we representing? We are almost 390 in terms of, if you look at the overall representation. And look at other countries which are much bigger. Look at India. Look at the United States of America, or even China. So I think that we have too many of these units, and they are very costly. And because they are costly, they take away the resources that we need for education, the resources that we need for health. I would myself love governance to start from the village. That is where the action is. And once we have the action in what are the villages and the wards, the monies will go there, and we'll remove this top layer of individuals whose only claim to fame is to harass our roads with.
So increase the number of wards from 1,450 to something else.
Yes.
But then reduce the number of constituencies from 290 to something below
to
this.
something else.
And reduce also the number of counties.
Yes.
From 47 to something else.
In fact, we had ourselves in the Bomas draft, through the people's interpretation, people's submissions and our interpretation, recommended between 14 and 18. And you know, when I see the governors meeting and they are saying, we are the Lake Region block, they are actually saying, this is what the county should be. When I see them meeting and saying, this is the coast block, they are saying, this is what the county should be, because then it has a tax base. But right now, as I speak to you, I'm going on a tangent a little. The appetite is to increase rather than to reduce.
Yes.
And the appetite to increase is informed by ethnicity.
Which we must accept, like you said.
And that particular appetite does not take into account that there are certain realities we are operating in the 21st century, and that if you have this top-heavy thing at every level, it doesn't help. But if you had a bigger unit where you find the governor, where you find the parliament of the region, then there would it would not be harmful to have the current counties as a sub-unit of that larger unit.
The problem, Prof, comes again into what you said. The fabric of our nation is very tribal.
Yes.
Now, if you amalgamate all the counties of the Lake region, then it means that there are some communities that will never see the light of day in leadership at the top. And they will feel always like they are marginalized.
You know, marginalization is a very interesting thing in Kenya. We even when you have, I've had people who are senior government officials saying we are marginalized. I mean, it is something that is implanted in our mind. I mean, what does it help me if somebody from my ethnic group is a prime minister or the president? How?
Right.
We must liberate ourselves from the thought that an individual from your community holding an office is a solution to your problems. And once we kill that culture, and we will, Latiff, we are only 61 years. In 100 years from today, when you are dead, when I'm dead, when City is dead, when Ondo is dead, these things will happen. We must not think about problems being resolved in our lifetime. I keep on telling people, look at the United States of America. When was slavery abolished? 1863. When was the civil rights, when they were doing the American Declaration of Independence that all men are born equal? Were all men equal? No. Blacks were not equal, women were not equal. George Floyd is being killed in the year 2000 after the civil rights movement. As we speak now, even after 500 years, we'll still be dealing with these issues. And if we accept that, I no longer think about things happening in my lifetime. I only think about making my contribution. Once I make my contribution and people will come in and make their contribution, then our children's children, we started with a proverb. There is a Malawi proverb that says, more precious than our children are our children's children. And I'm suggesting to Kenya that more precious than us and our children should be our children's children. Let us make and have a constitutional dispensation which is not set in stone. They themselves may want to interfere with it through interpretation, not necessarily amendment, through interpretation. And once we do that, then your appetite for seeing things happening in your lifetime reduces. Then your appetite for doing the wrong things reduces. Easier said than done.
You know, you put it well. You put it well. But the thing that always concerns me as I look at our country and I look at the continent, when I take my mind beyond our borders, is some of the greatest atrocities that we've seen committed in the previous century were committed by human beings to other human beings.
Yes.
And there's usually a start point. When we had our problems in Kenya, 2007, 2008, it followed similar patterns. There's a word that is actually used when you look at some of those problems that deal with mass violence that is meted on people. It's called dehumanizing. And there is a language that is used. Experts call it mental state language, meaning you actually don't realize that you're being violated just by what someone is saying. You don't realize that you're being profiled by what someone is saying. You euphemize wrong, so you diminish the potency and the sharp reality of what it actually is, and then over a period of time you get conditioned.
Yes.
So now you find yourself in a situation where what you're dealing with every day is a mental denial. You know it to be wrong, but you figure, well, since everybody seems to think it is okay. Now, everything we are saying with regard to the Constitution and the structure that we are speaking of are excellent things. But the rot that has been set in because of the conditioning which we have allowed to take place over time, we don't realize that actually violence is being meted against us on a daily basis. When you accept wrong and you think it is normal, you know, you've been violated to the point where you actually accept when someone is harming you. Because again, as you correctly put it, when someone steals, that money is intended for certain things, and then it means those people will be denied. So what happens to those people? Is that not violence? It's actually being committed. Someone doesn't have to kill you to commit violence or to be violent towards you. When someone diminishes you because of the community you come from, you are being violated. Someone is actually committing violence. You just don't see it as violence. And then over time, your condition, you accept that it is okay. And yet it is, nothing could be further from the truth. It is not okay. So, the consequence is that everything else that comes along, because there's this mental denial, you keep accepting things. You see, now we're talking about constitutional change. The change that we need is with the minds of our people and our people, so that we actually understand that if we don't change, if Prof. PLO and his merry band of men change all these wonderful things, we'll be exactly where we are, if not worse, because we ourselves will not be in a position to benefit from these changes.
I hear you, Latiff and City, but let us understand, as I like saying this nowadays, that perhaps when we sit in this forum, people say we are intellectualizing, they are moralizing, they are philosophizing, we know them, they have been doing this, let's ignore them. But they should not. Because what we are talking about, we in Kenya still have the luxury of doing this. We still have the luxury of having this conversation, the luxury of trying to amend or to deal with these things through discussion and having incremental change. There may come a time when we will not afford this luxury. And we must not reach there. And that is the beauty that we have periodically, even in the midst of our problems, always looked at the precipice and said, no, we don't want to go there. And then we retreat, but we are tempting fate. And our cup of iniquity will one day be full. So I hear you. But I think it is I think it is you who said it at one time, that our problem is the software. It is the software that we must deal with, not the hardware. And if we deal with the software, it means that we are going to recognize certain things that ought to be done. Talk about there is a commission that deals with hate speech. And many times I listen to individuals and I see what individuals in political leadership are saying about other communities. These individuals ought to leave office. Until the day that we have the moral courage to call these people out and to punish them, nothing is going to happen. And I think that is going to take time before we get into that space, because your typical politician has now weaponized their constituency so very badly that if you want to punish them, the weaponized constituency, which is ethnic, is going to cause havoc. And the government and the administration does not have and has not demonstrated the courage. I look forward to the day when you show courage and say, liwalo na liwe. We are going to use the law and to deploy the law and punish individuals who misbehave.
Prof, look at it. These leaders we speak of, yes, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. The people don't see that the very problems they have are caused by these people.
Unfortunately.
Not somebody else. No, not someone from a different place. The situation you find yourself in, this very person you're protecting, is the one who has brought about these problems. He or she and their ilk.
Which is my frustration.
Yes.
We then, using experts such as PLO and others, identified this and said, let's have institutions that would help us, first of all, to understand that these are the ones that are causing the problem by holding them accountable. You've just talked about the Integrity Commission. There's the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and all these other commissions, the Commission on Human Rights. All these commissions were supposed to show us by example that, you know what, this person has violated your rights and this is the consequence. This person is spreading ethnic hatred and causing discord in our communities. This is the consequence. This person is violating Chapter 6 of the Constitution. These are the consequences. But then these commissions, like you've said, it's like they have no power, yet they have power.
But look at, I'll give you a good example, the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, which gave its report nearly 10 years ago.
Right.
The Ndungu Commission. All of these things are not implemented. And the reason is the political leadership loves it this way. It is Malcolm X who famously said that your tormentor no longer needs to torment you. He has taught you how to torment yourself. And you do it gleefully. And this is our problem until the day we are able. And that is why some of us never